Chapter 461, The Arrogant Zomyu. Finally, Princess Bai Yao withdrew her gaze and sat the emperor's left side. But her pair of beautiful eyes that were tender like water still couldn't help from sneaking a peek at Duan Lingtian occasionally. The handsome face that she longed for and had appeared many times during her dreams at night had now really appeared before her eyes once again. It caused her feelings to unstably rise and fall, and she couldn't calm down for a long time. Presently, Duan Lingtian and Princess Bai Yao respectively sat at a side of the emperor, and when looked at from far, they were simply like a match made in heaven. At this moment, everything in the surroundings seemed to be overshadowed by them. Duan Lingtian's brows raised and his calm gaze descended onto the robust middle-aged man, and he thought in his heart. He's the ambassador of the Sun Ascent Kingdom. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian looked at the other three people by the side of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador. These were their young men, and the oldest was around 35 years old. The youngest was also almost 30. Presently, the burning gazes of the three had shot at Princess Bai Yao, and it seemed as if they were rooted to her. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into disdain when he saw this. These were the three young geniuses of the Sun Ascent Kingdom. Not mentioning anything else, but as far as Duan Lingtian was concerned, it would be difficult for these three people to have any great accomplishments in their lives with this level of composure. The youngest young man by the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador's side looked at the emperor as he said slightly impatiently, "Respected Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, now that everyone is here, can the friendly martial competition between our Sun Ascent Kingdom and the young geniuses of your Crimson Sky Kingdom begin? I'm already impatient to experience the ability of your Crimson Sky Kingdom's young geniuses." The emperor hadn't spoken yet when another young man around the age of 32 or 33 that was beside the previous young man couldn't help but laugh as he said, "It looks to me that wanting to experience the ability of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's young geniuses is fake, and wanting to show off before the beautiful princess is your real motive, right? HMPH. Could it be that you don't want to?" The form snorted coldly, and wasn't courteous in the slightest towards his companion. "Your strength is the weakest amongst the three of us, let me see how you lose face before the beautiful princess." The latter's tone was filled with ridicule. "Since the Sun Ascent Kingdom's young geniuses are already impatient, then I declare that friendly martial competition between the young geniuses of my Crimson Sky Kingdom and the Sun Ascent Kingdom officially begins." The emperor had a calm expression as he slowly announced. Swoosh. The emperor had just finished speaking when the youngest young man of the Sun Ascent Kingdom flashed out to stand in the empty ground in the middle of the banquet tables. Zomyu's gaze swept past the young geniuses at the various banquet tables, then he slowly spoke with a tone that contained an intent to provoke. "I'm Zomyu. I've heard since long ago that the experts in the Crimson Sky Kingdom are numerous like the clouds. Who's willing to come provide me with some guidance? I'll meet you in battle." A Su clan disciple around the age of 27 or 28 that was by the Su clan's patriarch's side flew out to stand in confrontation with Zomyu. "Crimson Sky Kingdom, Su clan, Su Yi." The Su clan disciple nodded to Zomyu then spoke slowly. "Although it's the first time I've come to the Crimson Sky Kingdom, I've still heard of your Su clan since I arrived at the Imperial City, and I know that the Su clan is one of the three great clans of the Imperial City. Today, let me experience the strength of a Su clan disciple. Sorry for the offense." As Zomyu spoke, his figure flashed out with an imposing aura that shot into the sky like a rainbow. Swoosh. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a cannonball that flew straight towards Su Yi. In the sky, 100 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. 7th level origin core stage. Su Yi's face went pale when he saw this. Obviously, Zomyu's strength had exceeded his expectations. Su Yi's face sank. He raised his hand and directly withdrew a spirit sword from the sheath on his waist, then directly swung out it. Instantly, 70 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared in the sky, then another 13 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared via the amplification of the spirit sword. 5th level origin core stage, grade 8 spirit sword. Swish. His sword tore through the sky, seeming to have transformed into a venomous serpent that fiercely bit towards Zomyu. This sword strike contained the strength of 83 ancient mammoths. Futile effort. Zomyu had a disdainful expression when he saw this, then his figure flashed out to easily dodge Su Yi's sword strike. Bang! Zomyu smashed out with his fist with a large movement, and in an instant, it descended onto Su Yi's chest like a sledgehammer smashing down, blasting Su Yi flying. Kacha! An ear-piercing sound of bones breaking suddenly sounded out, and it was extremely clear. Su Yi was like an arrow that left the bow as he flew out before fiercely falling onto the ground and fainting. The Su clan's patriarch, Su Bo Ya's face went gloomy, and he hurriedly went to check on Su Yi's injuries. He never imagined that the Sun Ascent Kingdom's members would be so ruthless. A 7th level Origin Core Stage martial artist going against a 5th level Origin Core Stage martial artist, yet being so ruthless was truly a lack of graceful bearing. Duan Lingtian's brows frowned slightly as he felt the members of the Sun Ascent Kingdom had gone too far, not holding back when thwarting someone whose 2 levels of cultivation weaker than oneself was truly infuriating. This is called a friendly martial competition. If someone didn't know it, they would think that the scene from before was a battle between enemies. At this moment, besides Duan Lingtian, Mo Yu, the Divine Might Marquis and the Emperor, everyone else present from the Crimson Sky Kingdom had angry expressions. The Sun Ascent Kingdom was going too far in bullying the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Seeming to have noticed the atmosphere of the scene, the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador stood up in a timely manner and fiercely glared at Zamyu. Zamyu, it's only a friendly martial competition between the young geniuses of our Sun Ascent Kingdom and the Crimson Sky Kingdom today, how can you be so ruthless? Quickly apologize to the Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. However, everyone present had good sense. How could they not discern that although the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador spoke in this way, his eyes contained slight complacency mixed within. Yes, Lord Ambassador. Zamyu didn't get angry from being reprimanded but instead smiled, then looked at the Emperor and cupped his hands. Your Majesty of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, Zamyu had attacked too heavily earlier, I'm sorry. There's no harm. The Emperor waved his hand and had a carefree expression as he spoke slowly. Injuries can't be avoided when sparring and competing in the martial arts, it's alright so long as lives remain unharmed. Your Majesty of the Crimson Sky Kingdom is wise. Zamyu grinned, then his infatuated gaze flashed past Princess Bai Yao before turning around and speaking provocatively. Next, I wonder which young genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom will be generous with advice. Friends below the 7th level of the Origin Core Stage, please don't come over and waste time. As he finished speaking, disdain flashed within Zamyu's eyes. Allow me. Zamyu's actions had drawn the joint rage of everyone from the Crimson Sky Kingdom since long ago. At this moment, a young man around the age of 30 walked out from the side of the Duan clan, and he looked at Zamyu with an arrogant expression. Remember it properly, the one that defeated you today is I, Duan Sheng. Duan Sheng, HMPH. From today onwards, change your name to Duan Bai. Zamyu snorted coldly, then he flashed out to battle Duan Sheng. In the end, Zamyu defeated Duan Sheng before Duan Sheng utilized his spirit weapon, and he smashed apart a few of Duan Sheng's bones. Although Duan Sheng was at the 7th level of the Origin Core Stage, he'd obviously only broken through a while ago. Moreover, his live combat experience was far inferior to Zamyu, and he'd only gone against Zamyu for 10 moves before being defeated by the flaw that Zamyu revealed intentionally. From today onwards, you're Duan Bai. Zamyu laughed loudly, and he was extremely arrogant, with a manner as if no one was able to compete with him. The Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Ruhuo, had only just given Duan Sheng a gold injury pill when he heard Zamyu, and his face sank instantly. In the next moment, he abruptly raised his head and looked at Duan Lingtian who sat by the Emperor's side, and his voice transmission contained slight rage mixed within. Little Tian, avenge Duan Sheng. Don't worry patriarch, he won't be jumping around for long. Duan Lingtian nodded to Duan Ruhuo and replied via voice transmission. I'll meet you in battle. A cold shout sounded out and a person flashed out from the Shao clan's banquet table. It was precisely an acquaintance of Duan Lingtian, Xiao Yu. Who are you? Zamyu looked at Xiao Yu and asked with an arrogant expression. Under the gazes of everyone, he'd successively won 2 battles to bring honor to his kingdom, and such an accomplishment in battle had caused him to be extremely complacent. You'll naturally know if you defeat me. Xiao Yu had a frosty expression as he spoke coolly. This fellow is acting cool again. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled when he saw this scene. His gaze was dreamy, as if he'd recalled the scene from a few years ago when he saw Xiao Yu for the first time in the Aurora City's Hidden Dragon Lists gathering. At that time, Xiao Yu was cold like this. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse that laid on Duan Lingtian's shoulder and slept since they started their journey to the Imperial Palace had awoken. The instant she opened her eyes, she saw the pile of good food before her eyes, then she flashed out to stand on the table before directly nibbling on the various good food on the table. What a cute little gold mouse. Because of Duan Lingtian's existence, Princess Bai Yao didn't have much interest towards the friendly martial competition, and now when she saw a fluffy little gold mouse flash down from Duan Lingtian's shoulder, her beautiful eyes that were tender like water emitted a wisp of tender affection. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse heard Princess Bai Yao, then she winked at Princess Bai Yao for a while before continuing to lower her head and nibble on the good food on the table. What an intelligent little gold mouse! Princess Bai Yao's eyes lit up when she saw this scene, as it was the first time she'd seen such an intelligent pet mouse. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the even ground before him. Presently, Zha Mu had burst into rage when facing the cold expression Xiao Yu, then his body flashed out like a cannonball as his powerful fist struck out, bearing down menacingly. Xiao Yu stood on the spot when facing Zha Mu's attack, and he had a calm expression as he stood there unmoving like a mountain. Sleeve dimension. Before Xiao Yu made a move, Duan Lingtian felt this scene to be slightly familiar, and his brows couldn't help but raise. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's guess was correct. Sleeve dimension. Xiao Yu attacked by swinging out his sleeve, and his sleeve expanded before sweeping out to intercept Zha Mu's powerful punch. Bang! Zha Mu's punch that flashed out like a cannonball smashed onto Xiao Yu's sleeve, yet he felt as if he's hit a ball of cotton, and there was utterly no place to exert force. Zha Mu, use your spirit weapon. Right at this moment, the expression of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador went grim and he hurriedly warned Zha Mu via voice transmission. He perceived that the martial skill Xiao Yu had executed now was extraordinary. 1. The raw text for Duan Sheng means Duan, victory, so Zha Mu's version was Duan, defeat. 461 Chapter 462, The Aggrieved Hai. Zha Mu's face became grim when he heard the warning from the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, and he hurriedly withdrew his hand to shoot it like a bolt of lightning to grab towards his waist, wanting to withdraw the sheathed spirit saber there. But would he be in time? HMPH. At practically the instant Zha Mu withdrew his hand, Xiao Yu's sleeve expanded once again and swiftly flashed out, and before Zha Mu could withdraw his saber, it was like a shadow that followed Zha Mu to smash onto his body, and it was as if it had predicted he would do this. Ah! Zha Mu let out a shrill cry that completely suppressed the sound of his bones breaking, and he flew out to fall onto the ground in a sorry state. After he fell to the ground, the intense pain caused Zha Mu to roll around on the ground as cold sweat flowed out of his body. Xiao Yu, victorious. Good. Instantly, many people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom cheered. Especially the Xiao clan's patriarch, and a smile appeared on his face. Earlier, no matter if it was the Su clan or the Duan clan, their disciples had fought Zha Mu, yet suffered a crushing defeat. Xiao Yu defeating Zha Mu had undoubtedly brought great honor to the Xiao clan. Haha, good, the emperor revealed a smile as well. Although he'd always maintained his composure earlier, as if he was extremely indifferent to victory or defeat, every time the young geniuses of the Crimson Sky Kingdom were defeated, disappointment couldn't help but emerge in his heart. Now that Xiao Yu had defeated the young genius of the Sun Ascent Kingdom, it caused him to feel that it brought honor to him as well. What's your name? The emperor looked at Xiao Yu as he asked. Your Majesty, I'm Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu's face didn't have the coldness from before when facing the emperor, and he was respectful and reverent. Your Majesty, Xiao Yu is a good friend of mine. Duan Lingtian looked at the emperor as he said via voice transmission. He did this because he undoubtedly hoped that the emperor would value Xiao Yu even more. This was extremely crucial to Xiao Yu's future. Xiao Yu was his friend, and he hoped that Xiao Yu would be able to accomplish something of his own in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. The emperor's eyes squinted when he heard Duan Lingtian's voice transmission, then glanced deeply at Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu, I've remembered you. I'll properly reward you once the friendly martial competition between the young geniuses of my Crimson Sky Kingdom and the Sun Ascent Kingdom ends. Thank you, Your Majesty. Xiao Yu hurriedly replied with an expression of being overwhelmed by the sudden favor. Unlike Duan Lingtian, although Xiao Yu's natural talent in the martial Dao wasn't bad, it was merely limited to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Duan Lingtian's future wasn't something that could be restrained by the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Whereas if nothing unexpected happened, Xiao Yu was bound to spend his entire life in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. In Xiao Yu's eyes, the Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom was a supreme existence. Now that an existence like this wanted to reward him, it caused him to be pleasantly surprised, yet also terrified. This disciples of the Xiao clan is extraordinary indeed. Most importantly, he's still young and he still has a large space for improvement. He's much stronger than the disciples of the Su clan and the Duan clan. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador looked at Xiao Yu as a cold light flashed deep within his eyes and a false smile hung on his face as he spoke slowly. These words were obviously trying to drive a wedge between the clans. Ambassador, these words are mistaken. Right when the face of the Su clan and Duan clan's patriarchs went grim, Xiao Yu glanced calmly at the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador. The Su clan and the Duan clan are similar to our Xiao clan. They're amongst the 3 great clans of the imperial city and the experts in their clans are numerous like the clouds. No matter if it is the Su clan or the Duan clan, they both have a young genius that I'm ashamed of my inferiority to. Moreover, the ages of those young geniuses aren't older than me. Xiao Yu spoke slowly. Brother Xiao Yu, your words are going too far, your current age is at most around 25. The Su clan and the Duan clan actually have young geniuses that are younger than you, yet possess a strength that surpasses you. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador obviously didn't believe him. Regardless of if you believe it or not, the one from the Su clan has already left the Imperial Kingdom to wander about a few years ago. Before he left, he far surpassed me in both natural talent and strength. As for the one from the Duan clan, I think that Lord Ambassador will be able to see him really soon. As Xiao Yu finished speaking, he stopped for a moment and his gaze unnoticeably flanked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. He naturally was able to guess who the 2 people Xiao Yu was speaking of. Su clan, Su Li. The young sword cultivator he and Xiao Yu had got to know at the Iron Blood Army's genius camp when they were young, and who had later on entered the Imperial City's Paladin Academy with them and became good friends with them. But unfortunately, destiny makes a fool of people, causing Su Li to be forced to have to leave in the end, and there was no news of him until now. But one thing could be confirmed, before Su Li left, he did indeed far surpass Xiao Yu in both strength and natural talent. As for the Duan clan, Duan Lingtian naturally was able to guess that Xiao Yu was talking about him. The unsightly expression of the Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Ruhuo, eased up, then he glanced at Duan Lingtian and he emitted a wisp of a smile. Right, my Duan clan's young genius isn't inferior to the disciples of any clan. He believed that even if it was those great clans of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, they might not possess a young genius that could compare to Duan Lingtian's natural talent in the martial Dao. A bitter smile appeared on the corners of the Su clan's patriarch, Su Bo Ya's, mouth. He was naturally able to guess that the young genius of the Su clan that Xiao Yu spoke of was Su Li, but, could Su Li still be considered to be a disciple of the Su clan? He couldn't help but sigh with emotion in his heart. Then I'll wait and see. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador glanced indifferently at Xiao Yu, then he looked at the other young man. Ha Yi, go experience the ability of this brother Xiao Yu, remember to hold back, don't cripple him by accident. Duan Lingtian frowned slightly. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador had said the word crippled with emphasis, and his ulterior motive could be seen from this. Yes, Lord Ambassador. Ha Yi, who was called upon by the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, was precisely the young man that had argued with Zamyu earlier, and he who possessed a robust figure walked out in large strides that gave others a type of shapeless pressure. Duan Lingtian's eyes slightly squinted when he saw Xiao Yu itching to have a try, and his spiritual force swept out to envelop Ha Yi. 9th level Origin Core Stage. Duan Lingtian confirmed Ha Yi's cultivation at the first possible moment. Brother Xiao Yu, I'm extremely happy that you defeated Zamyu. If it was at a normal time, I'd surely drink a few cups of wine with you. But, now that the Lord Ambassador has spoken, I have no choice but to fight you. Ha Yi stood to confront Xiao Yu and grinned, his snow-white teeth was set off by his dark skin to seem exceptionally conspicuous. Xiao Yu glanced deeply at Ha Yi. Since you're so straightforward, then I'm not an insensible person as well, I admit defeat. Admit defeat. Besides Duan Lingtian, everyone present couldn't help but be stunned when Xiao Yu said this. They obviously had never imagined that Xiao Yu would make such a decision. They were extremely bewildered. A moment ago, Xiao Yu had an expression of being itching to try. At this moment, how did he suddenly change so quickly? Right when most of the people present still hadn't recovered from their shock, Xiao Yu had already returned to the side of the Xiao clan's patriarch. When faced with the questions of the Xiao clan's patriarch, Xiao Yu replied via voice transmission. Patriarch, this Sun Ascent Kingdom's Ha Yi is a 9th level Origin Core Stage martial artist. The Xiao clan's patriarch's face went grim when he heard this. Haha, I thought the young geniuses of the Crimson Sky Kingdom were extraordinary, but I never expected that they were only people that ran away in the face of battle. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador's face sank when he saw Xiao Yu admit defeat, and he couldn't help but mock. I know my own limitations, I'm not a match for a 9th-level Origin Core stage martial artist. Xiao Yu glanced deeply at He Yi before speaking slowly. You, how did you know? He Yi's face went grim and he was slightly moved. He knew that he'd never fought since arriving at the Crimson Sky Kingdom, and logically speaking, there ought to be no one that knew of his true cultivation. Now that it was revealed by Xiao Yu, he just couldn't wrap his head around it no matter how he thought. The face of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador sank and he glared at He Yi while saying via voice transmission, He Yi, you were there when I taught Jie Lu a lesson for revealing his first-level nascent soul stage cultivation beforehand. I warned you repeatedly to not reveal your cultivation before today, yet this is what you promised me. Obviously, as far as the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador was concerned, it was surely He Yi who'd exposed his cultivation beforehand. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the people of the Crimson Sky Kingdom to find out about He Yi's cultivation. Lord Ambassador, I never fought since I arrived at the Crimson Sky Kingdom, I've never revealed my cultivation, He Yi replied via voice transmission with a tone filled with grievance. 9th level of the Origin Core stage. Xiao Yu's words had already caused everyone from the Crimson Sky Kingdom to be greatly shocked, and when they noticed the unsightly expression of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, they completely confirmed it. It would seem that the second person from the Sun Ascent Kingdom was a 9th level Origin Core stage martial artist. Instantly, the disciples from the 3 great clans that were itching to try went pale, and their butts that had just been raised sat down once again, not daring to make a rash move again. What a joke! A 9th level Origin Core stage martial artist was utterly not something they could go against. Now, they felt slightly lucky. Lucky that Xiao Yu exposed He Yi's cultivation, otherwise, they would surely come to no good end. Duan Lingtian looked at this scene before him with a calm expression. The reason Xiao Yu had admitted defeat was entirely because he'd just notified Xiao Yu of He Yi's exact cultivation via voice transmission. Xiao Yu trusted Duan Lingtian exceptionally, and he didn't doubt Duan Lingtian's words in the slightest and directly admitted defeat. This caused the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador's plan to teach Xiao Yu a lesson to fail. 9th level Origin Core stage. For a time, the gazes of the members of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's 3 great clans had all descended in unison onto Nifen, who was at the Divine Might Marquis Estate's banquet table. Nifen, the junior marquis of the Divine Might Marquis Estate, possessed a cultivation at the 9th level of the Origin Core stage. As far as they were concerned, amongst the young geniuses of the Crimson Sky Kingdom that were present, it would probably only be Duan Lingtian and Nifen who possessed the strength to go against He Yi. Subconsciously, they'd taken Duan Lingtian to be their last trump card. After all, there was still another first-level nascent soul stage young geniuses of the Sun Ascent Kingdom that hadn't made a move yet. Before today, they even thought that the Crimson Sky Kingdom would lose for sure. But since the instant earlier that they saw Duan Lingtian, they seemed to have seen a light, a ray of hope. As far as they were concerned, Duan Lingtian had left the Crimson Sky Kingdom for a few years to head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and had joined one of those formidable sects, so his current strength would surely be even stronger. 462 Chapter 463, The Strongest, Jie Lu. Swoosh. Nifen's figure flashed out to stand before the Sun Ascent Kingdom's young genius, He Yi, in the blink of an eye, and he stood confrontation with He Yi. Crimson Sky Kingdom, Divine Might Marquis Estate, Nifen. Nifen glanced at He Yi indifferently as he spoke slowly. Nifen, He Yi hadn't even reacted yet when the eyes of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador squinted. So it's the Divine Might Marquis Estate's junior marquis, the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Divine Might Marquis is the god of war whose might reverberates throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Although I'm from the faraway Sun Ascent Kingdom, yet the Divine Might Marquis's name still roars in my ears like thunder. Now that I see the junior marquis today, he possesses an imposing and majestic appearance. As expected, the son of a talented and brave man is never a weakling. The words of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador praised Nifen extremely highly. As for if it was the truth or not, the people present were more or less able to discern it. Sometimes, the higher one is praised, the more one can tolerate a loss. Otherwise, once one fell, one would be crushed. Divine Might Marquis, Ba-er is honored. Subsequently, the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador looked at Ni Yuan, who sat at the opposite banquet table, and nodded with a smile. Ambassador, don't mention it. Ni Yuan replied indifferently, and he was obviously slightly disinterested. This caused the face of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba-er, to sink slightly, but his face quickly bloomed into a smile again, and his changes in expression were extremely swift. This Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador is truly a wolf at heart but innocent in appearance. Duan Lingtian glanced at Ba-er indifferently as he thought to himself. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba-er, looked to be ordinary, but Duan Lingtian's spiritual force was extremely acute, and had long ago discerned that Ba-er was a half-step void stage martial artist with extraordinary strength. Ha-yi, this junior marquis, Ni-fen, of the Divine Might Marquis estate is similar to you. He's a 9th level origin core stage martial artist as well. According to my knowledge, his strength is the strongest amongst the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Regardless of if you're able to defeat him today or not, we'll win for sure. Ba-er looked at Ha-yi and said via voice transmission, however, if you're able to defeat him, then Jie-lu doesn't have to fight. In this way, our Sun Ascent Kingdom would gain a complete victory. And once we return to the kingdom, I'll surely ask His Majesty to properly reward you. Don't worry Lord Ambassador, I'll surely defeat Ni-fen. Ha-yi replied via voice transmission. Junior Marquis, forgive me for being impolite. A cold light arose within Ha-yi's eyes, and the instant he looked towards Ni-fen, the origin energy on his legs raged and skyrocketed. In the sky above him, 120 lifelike ancient mammoths accumulated force while waiting to be deployed. Swoosh! In the next moment, Ha-yi moved, his entire body seeming to have transformed into an arrow shot out from a heavy bow, and his speed was extremely shocking. Howls of the wind sounded out everywhere he passed, and mixed within it was a wave of oppressive sounds of air exploding. Right when Ha-yi flashed to arrive nearby Ni-fen, his right hand flashed like a bolt of lightning past his waist, withdrawing the sheathed spirit saber, and a saber light flashed out. The extremely swift saber light contained raging origin energy that leapt about, and it seemed to be capable of destroying anything as it carried a might of sweeping away all obstacles and swept towards Ni-fen. In the sky, another 22 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared by the side of the existing 120 ancient mammoths. 9th level origin core stage. Grade 8 spirit saber. This saber strike contained the strength of 142 ancient mammoths. Everywhere it passed, the airflow in the area split apart, and its imposing might soared to the sky like a rainbow. Since Ha-yi attacked until this moment, everything had happened in the blink of an eye. Many young geniuses of the Crimson Sky Kingdom broke out in cold sweat when they saw Ha-yi's speed so swift. This Ha-yi is really at the 9th level of the origin core stage. Fortunately, I didn't go challenge him, otherwise, I would only be bringing disgrace to myself. I'm afraid that on the side of our Crimson Sky Kingdom, only Duan Lingtian and the Junior Marquis are able to go against Ha-yi. The instant the young geniuses of the Crimson Sky Kingdom were perturbed, Ni-fen moved. Swoosh! Ni-fen's movements were swift like the wind, and he dodged to the side. However, the grade 8 spirit saber in Ha-yi's hand seemed as if it had grown eyes, and it turned in a curve to sweep towards Ni-fen, following like a shadow and causing Ni-fen to be unable to dodge. HMPH. A cold snort sounded out. It was Ni-fen whose eyes squinted, and he withdrew a spirit sword with a raise of his hand. Swish! A sword light that similarly contained the strength of 142 ancient mammoths flashed out, and it collided with the spirit saber in Ha-yi's hand. Clang! Accompanied by the sound of iron weapons colliding, their origin energy collided together, and it caused the air to freeze for a moment. In the next moment, Ni-feng and Ha-yi were blasted back at the same time. Both of them retreated 7 steps. Satisfying. Battle intent surged in Ni-fen's eyes. He seemed to have returned to that period of time of slaughtering on the battlefield, and the aura of slaughter on his body shot into the sky with an imposing might that was like a rainbow. Fight, 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 At this moment, it seemed like only Ha-yi remained in the world in Ni-fen's eyes, and Ha-yi was his enemy. Kill! Suddenly, Ni-fen shouted out explosively with heroic spirit that shot into the sky. In the next moment, it was as if Ni-fen was possessed by a war god. His body carried a shocking aura of slaughter as he dashed out with an imposing might that shot into the sky, and he possessed the appearance of being able to sweep through everything. Ha-yi is about to lose. Duan Lingtian casually glanced at Ha-yi and thought in his heart. In the distance, Ha-yi had caught his breath with extreme difficulty when he saw Ni-fen attacking once more. Instantly, he felt as if there was a terrifying aura of slaughter sweeping out from Ni-fen's body, and it caused fear to emerge from the bottom of his heart. No, we're both martial artists at the 9th level of the origin core stage, why should I be afraid of him? Ha-yi gritted his teeth, then origin energy bloomed atop the spirit saber in his hand, and he intended to greet Nifen's attack. Kill. Right at this moment, Nifen spoke once more with a voice that was like a thunderclap, and his aura that contained the aura of slaughter from the battlefield had enveloped Hai once again, causing Hai's mind to be distracted. The origin energy on the spirit saber instantly waned slightly. Swish. The sword and saber once again collided together fiercely, origin energy roared, and it seemed like a fierce struggle between two equally matched opponents. Unlike the tie like before, this time, Nifen's battle intent surged and the hot blood in his body boiled as if he'd returned to the time of slaughter on the battlefield. This sword strike contained many things. Whereas on Hai's side, the distraction of his mind earlier had caused the origin energy on his grade 8 spirit saber to have signs of dispersing. Clang. Now that they'd collided, the sound of iron weapons colliding resounded once again. This time, the grade 8 spirit saber Hai's hand was directly blasted flying, and the spirit sword in Nifen's hand was withdrawn by him after it blasted Hai's spirit saber flying. Swoosh. However, Nifen's fist instead carried a long vast origin energy to fiercely descend onto Hai's chest. Kacha. The clear sound of bones breaking sounded out, and it caused a chill to run down one's spine. Ah! Hai seemed like the last to realize his bones breaking and emitted a shrill cry, then his entire body flew out in a sorry state to fiercely fall onto the ground, and he struggled for a moment before directly fainting. Nifen, victorious. Haha, good. Instantly, many people on the side of the Crimson Sky Kingdom cheered for Nifen. It was a good match. Nifen looked at the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba-er, who was checking on the injuries of Hai with a refined and courteous manner, and his calm expression made him seem to be harmless. This caused Ba-er to nearly spit blood out of anger. This Nifen knocked Hai out, yet he actually seems like nothing happened, damn it. The junior Marquis has proved himself to be the son of the Divine Might Marquis, developing such a terrifying aura of slaughter from the battlefield at such a young age. I'm afraid no one under the nascent soul stage could possibly be a match for you, junior Marquis. Our Sun Ascent Kingdom is completely convinced of our loss in this round. After Ba-er gave Hai a medicinal pill, he glanced deeply at Nifen. However, if Junior Marquis were to encounter a nascent soul stage martial artist, your aura of slaughter from the battlefield will probably only be a type of magnificent decoration and be of no use. Nifen smiled indifferently, and he neither agreed nor disagreed. This caused Ba-er to be even angrier out of embarrassment, then he shouted in a low voice. Zhe Lu. Along with Ba-er speaking, a robust young man on the banquet's table opposite the Divine Might Marquis Estate's table, whose gaze never left Princess Bai Yao, suddenly came back to his senses. This robust young man was exactly the strongest person in the younger generation of the Sun Ascent Kingdom. Zhe Lu. His cultivation was at the first level of the Origin Core stage. In the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist at the age of around 35 could only be considered as above average. But in the tiny kingdoms, it was instead considered to be a rare genius. Crack crackle, Zhe Lu's figure flashed out to transform into a gust of wind that instantly flashed onto the empty space in the center to confront Nifen, then he lightly twisted his neck to emit a wave of clear sounds of bones rubbing together. You aren't a match for me. Zhe Lu glanced at Nifen lazily and spoke with slight disinterest. Along with Zhe Lu's fists being clenched tightly, 200 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him, they accumulated force while waiting to be deployed. First-level nascent soul stage. Although most of the people on the side of the Crimson Sky Kingdom had heard that there was a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist amongst the three young geniuses that had come from the Sun Ascent Kingdom this time, but when they saw it with their own eyes, they still couldn't help from being slightly shocked. Meanwhile, almost all the gazes of everyone from the Crimson Sky Kingdom descended onto Nifen. They were curious if Nifen would choose to battle Zhe Lu or choose to admit defeat. If he chose to battle Zhe Lu, he would practically have no possibility of winning. The gap between a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist and a 9th-level Origin Core stage martial artist was too great. If he admitted defeat, it would undoubtedly grow the prestige of the Sun Ascent Kingdom and cause the arrogance of the members of the Sun Ascent Kingdom to be even greater. I admit defeat. In next to no time, Nifen made his decision. He shrugged with an indifferent expression and returned to the Divine Might Marquis Estate's banquet table. The people of the Crimson Sky Kingdom weren't surprised when they saw this. Fortunately, they still had a trump card, so they didn't feel a sense of loss from Nifen admitting defeat. Ha 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 ha, the ambassador of the Sun Ascent Kingdom, Ba-er, burst into laughter that was awfully arrogant. The junior marquis is really a wise man who understands the situation, Your Majesty. In this way, the friendly martial competition between the young geniuses of our two kingdoms ought to end with the victory of my Sun Ascent Kingdom, right? As he finished speaking, Ba-Er's yes narrowed and his face was filled with a smile of delight, as if the 3 year of taxes of the Crimson Sky Kingdom was close within reach. Truly boring. Could it be that there isn't a decent young genius in the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Zhe Lu spoke lazily, then he turned around, intending to return to his seat. Wait, right at this moment, the Divine Might Marquis, Ni Yuan, stopped Zhe Lu. 463 Chapter 464, Minor 7-Star Sword Technique. Divine Might Marquis, what advice or comments do you have? Zhe Lu turned around and looked at Ni Yuan as he asked. Ni Yuan didn't answer Zhe Lu but instead looked at another young man that sat by his side. Although he didn't know much about this young man, and only knew he was the junior brother of his nephew, Duan Lingtian. But since his nephew was so confident of the young man, he could only choose to believe. The young man was precisely Mo Yu. Mo Yu nodded when he saw Ni Yuan look over, then he stood up and walked over with large strides, and he stood facing Zhe Lu in confrontation. Mo Yu was undoubtedly an unfamiliar face to everyone from the Crimson Sky Kingdom. The age of this young man looks to be at most around 23, why did the Divine Might Marquis ask him to stand out at a time like this? Could it be that his strength is stronger than the junior marquis? This was the thought that abruptly arose within the hearts of most of the people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom. After all, Mo Yu's age was truly too young. The Emperor sat at the table of the host and his eyes emitted slight surprise, and his curious gaze locked firmly onto Mo Yu. Commander Duan, this young man seems to have been following by your side. Under his curiosity, the Emperor asked Duan Lingtian via voice transmission. He remembered that the first time he met this young man was following behind Duan Lingtian, and seemed to be extremely reverent of Duan Lingtian. Moreover, he understood the Divine Might Marquis, Ni Yuan, extremely well. He knew that if Ni Yuan wasn't confident, Ni Yuan would absolutely not allow this young man to go to battle. He's my junior brother, Duan Lingtian lightly smiled. Junior brother. The Emperor was shocked. This young man was called junior brother by Duan Lingtian, and his identity was obvious. He was a member of a sect in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Mo Yu. Mo Yu looked calmly at Zhe Lu before him and nodded indifferently. When Mo Yu walked out, Zhe Lu's brows had already entangled together, and now when he heard Mo Yu introduce himself, his face sank. Kid, you aren't a match for me, withdraw. As far as he was concerned, even if the young man's natural talent was any stronger, a young man at an age of around 23 wouldn't be strong to any extent. He was a nascent soul-stage martial artist, and even if he won the battle with such a young man, it wouldn't be glorious. Mo Yu, looks like some people underestimate you extremely. Right at this moment, a sudden voice entered into the ears of everyone present. It's Duan Lingtian. Instantly, the gazes of most of the people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom shot in unison at Duan Lingtian who sat by the Emperor's side. This young man was brought over by Duan Lingtian. Their hearts jerked. They knew clearly where Duan Lingtian had gone for these past few years. Looks like this young man is probably from the sect in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom as well. The crowd of people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom couldn't refrain from guessing. The ambassador of the Sun Ascent Kingdom glanced at Duan Lingtian and frowned. If it wasn't for this young man being seated by the Emperor's side and obviously possessed an extraordinary identity, he would have rebuked him long ago. A little kid like this dared to look down on the strongest young genius of their Sun Ascent Kingdom, Zhe Lu. But in the next moment, the scene before his eyes caused the ambassador of the Sun Ascent Kingdom to go pale. Along with Duan Lingtian finishing speaking, Mo Yu suddenly took a step forward. Instantly, the energy of heaven and earth roiled above him, and it developed 200 ancient mammoth silhouettes in the end. At this moment, 200 ancient mammoth silhouettes stopped above Mo Yu, and they accumulated force while waiting to be deployed. When seen from afar, they seemed to be extremely dazzling, and at the same time, they gave an extremely great visual shock to the people present. First level nascent soul stage. How old is he? This natural talent, it's even more abnormal than the number one genius of our Crimson Sky Kingdom from 20 over years ago, Duan Rufeng. It's too terrifying. This is a genius martial artist of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. At the side of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, the people of the three great clans including their respective patriarchs were all stunned. They felt inexplicable shock in their hearts. The Emperor revealed a smile when he saw the scene before him, yet a trace of shock couldn't be avoided from flashing within his eyes. Yu, the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba-Er's face flushed red when he saw the 200 ancient mammoth silhouettes above Mo Yu. It was as if his throat was tightly choked and he was unable to speak for a long time. This young man gave him too great of a shock. It's I who has underestimated you. Zhe Lu gasped, then looked at Mo Yu with a serious expression. Mo Yu looked calmly at Zhe Lu and a 3-foot-long blade appeared out of thin air in his hand. Ha! Zhe Lu shouted out explosively when he saw this, then his figure flashed like the wind, choosing to attack first to seize the initiative. With a raise of his hand, a spirit saber similarly appeared in Zhe Lu's hand, and origin energy bloomed on the spurt saber, bestowing formidable strength to him. Above Zhe Lu, another 56 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared at the side of the existing 200 ancient mammoth silhouettes. This was the amplification of the spirit weapon. Grade 7 Spirit Saber. Instantly many people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom exclaimed in surprise. They never imagined that this Zhe Lu of the Sun Ascent Kingdom was not only a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist, but he ever possessed a Grade 7 Spirit Saber to rely on. Although a Grade 7 Spirit Saber was only one grade above a Grade 8 Spirit Saber, the strength it amplified but an entire 10% more. What sort of notion was 10%? For example, a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist that didn't utilize a spirit weapon possessed a strength comparable to the strength of 200 ancient mammoths. An amplification of 10% was the strength of 20 ancient mammoths. In other words, if Mo Yu didn't possess a Grade 7 spirit weapon, then Zhe Lu would have pulled open a gap of the strength of 20 ancient mammoths from Mo Yu. The face of the Divine Might Marquis, Ni Yuan, became grim. The scene before his eyes had exceeded his expectations. If he knew Zhe Lu had a Grade 7 spirit saber in his possession, he'd surely have lent the Grade 7 spirit sword he carried by his side to Mo Yu, but unfortunately it was already too late now. At this moment, only the 3 people at the host's table had a calm expression. Duan Lingtian was calm because he knew the spirit sword in Mo Yu's possession was a Grade 7 spirit sword as well. The Emperor was calm because he saw Duan Lingtian was calm and he trusted Duan Lingtian. As for Princess Bai Yao, she blindly believed in Duan Lingtian. The Sun Ascent Sect's ambassador, Ba-Er, saw the expressions of everyone from the Crimson Sky Kingdom, and a wisp of complacency couldn't help but arise on his face. HMPH. HMPH. All of you would never have imagined that I would lend my spirit saber to Zhe Lu beforehand. Subsequently, Ba-Er looked towards the host's table, and when he saw the calm expressions of the 3 people there, his heart jerked as a bad premonition arose within his heart. Swish! An ear-piercing cry of the sword swept out, and it rose and fell, piercing the eardrums of the people present and causing it to tremble. The expressions of some of the young geniuses of the 3 great clans that were comparatively weaker had gone ghastly pale, and they emitted gazes of terror as they looked at the young man that swung his sword out. They clearly saw that when this young man called Mo Yu attacked, the ancient mammoth silhouettes that appeared in the sky were actually similar in number to Zhe Lu. They knew clearly what this meant. Grade 7 Spirit Sword. Mo Yu actually possessed a Grade 7 spirit weapon. Destroy. The young genius of the Sun Ascent Kingdom, Zhe Lu, who attacked first to seize the initiative, shouted out explosively, and origin energy instantly skyrocketed on the Grade 7 spirit saber in his hand. Instantly, the Grade 7 spirit saber in Zhe Lu's hand was suffused and completely enveloped by a milky white and raging origin energy, then it instantly transformed into a 3-meter-long enormous saber that directly chopped down towards Mo Yu, and it carried along the might of splitting a mountain. It seemed as if it wanted to chop Mo Yu into 2. Minor 7-star sword technique. Mo Yu's face remained unchanged when facing Zhe Lu's saber that approached menacingly, and the corners of his mouth slightly moved as he muttered. The spirit sword in Mo Yu's hand trembled, then it seemed like a stroke of the gods as it tore through the sky, and at practically the exact same time, numerous ear-piercing and oppressive sounds of air exploding sounded out. In this next moment, swish, 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 origin energy coiled around the spirit sword in Mo Yu's hand and it instantly transformed into 7 material sword lights that flashed out to intercept the enormous saber that chopped downwards in Zhe Lu's hand. The 7 sword lights were extremely similar to falling meteors that fell down scattered all over to blast onto the enormous saber. Bang! The first sword light descended down, causing the origin energy on the enormous saber to dim down and the enormous saber shrunk slightly. Bang! The second sword light descended down, causing the origin energy on the enormous saber to dim down once again, and the enormous saber shrunk once again. Bang! Bang! The fourth sword light, the fifth sword light, the sixth sword light, and the seventh sword light all descended down successively. One sword after the other. It was like a surging waves in the ocean, one wave after the other, the next wave stronger than the one before. When the sixth sword light descended, the origin energy on the enormous saber in Jie Lu's hand was completely dispersed, then the spirit saber in Jie Lu's hand recovered to its true form, and it was dim and dull. When the seventh sword light descended, the spirit saber in Jie Lu's hand was blasted flying, and it pierced into a faraway wall with a clang. The palm of the hand Jie Lu used to hold his saber had split open and fresh blood dripped down from it. At the side of his throat, a spirit sword that followed him like a shadow had silently arrived there. Silence. The scene was deathly silent. At this moment, the gazes of everyone had descended onto the two people at the center. Mo Yu, this young man who wasn't a well-known figure, was in high spirits, and the spirit sword in his hand was held on the throat of the strongest young genius of the Sun Ascent Kingdom, Jie Lu. So long as he moved slightly, Jie Lu would die for sure. I've lost. Jie Lu had a dejected expression, and he allowed the fresh blood to continue flowing down ceaselessly from his palm as if he didn't notice in the slightest. He'd lost, defeated by a young man around the age of 23. Perhaps, since the moment the young man had executed that marvelous and unfathomable sword skill, he was already bound to lose. It was the first time in his lifetime that he'd seen such a marvelous sword skill. Finally, the spectators recovered from their shock, and for a time, the sounds of gasping rose and fell. What a formidable sword skill! The sword skill of this young man, those 7 material sword lights caused it to be difficult to distinguish between true and false. Besides that, each sword light amongst those 7 sword lights were stronger than the previous, and every sword light that flashed out was like a falling meteor. It's truly shocking. My life hasn't been lived in vain since I was able to witness such a marvelous sword skill in my lifetime. Many people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom couldn't refrain from sighing with emotion. 464 Chapter 465, Neil. I truly never imagined that Mo Yu has actually cultivated the minor 7-star sword technique to the perfection stage. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. He was able to discern that in terms of cultivated stage, the minor 7-star sword technique that Mo Yu executed earlier was already not inferior to the minor 7-star sword technique the traitor, Huang Ji, executed during the martial competition of the 5 great sects. Martial competition of the 5 great sects. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he recalled the scenes from the martial competition of the 5 great sects 1 year ago. Presently, only 3 out of the 5 great sects still remained. Moreover, the remaining sects had combined together to form a monolithic whole. Why would the Origin Convergence sect, Demonic Lotus Blade sect, and Snow Moon sect choose to combine together? Now, when he recalled the scenes on the peak of Dubi Peak, Duan Lingtian still felt it was difficult to understand. Logically speaking, no matter if it was the Origin Convergence sect, Demonic Lotus Blade sect, or Snow Moon sect, there were all sects that had been inherited for over 1,000 years, and it was impossible for them to easily abandon the name of their respective sects and choose to combine their sects. There's surely a secret within it, Duan Lingtian said to himself. In the future, so long as I have the strength to annihilate the 3 great sects that have combined together, I'll naturally be able to know the reason. Killing intent flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes before he withdrew his thoughts, and his gaze once again descended onto Mo Yu as he muttered in his heart. Sect leader, don't worry. I'll assist Mo Yu in rebuilding the 7-star sword sect. Mo Yu is extremely good, extremely outstanding, and you can rest in peace in the netherworld. Mo Yu, at the table of the Divine Might Marquis estate, Ni Yuan and Ni Fen looked at each other, and they both saw the shock in each other's eyes. Although they were mentally prepared since long ago, when they saw Mo Yu defeat Jie Lu with their own 2 eyes, they couldn't help but be shocked in their hearts. This is a person that has come from a sect in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Are all the people that come from sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom so abnormal? The corners of Ni Yuan and Ni Fen's mouths simultaneously curled into a bitter smile, as they both felt that most of their lifetime had been wasted. When he saw Mo Yu defeat Jie Lu, Duan Lingtian thought that this farce would come to an end. As far as he was concerned, the co-called friendly martial competition between the young geniuses of the 2 kingdoms could indeed only be considered as a farce. However, the ambassador of the Sun Ascent Kingdom seemed to not be resigned. You're called Mo Yu, The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba looked at Mo Yu with a burning gaze as he asked in a deep voice. Mo Yu nodded indifferently. Are you a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Ba suddenly took a step forward, then his imposing manner as a half-step void stage martial artist swept out to envelop Mo Yu. His pair of fierce eyes stared fixedly at Mo Yu, as if he wanted to discern if Mo Yu was lying from the changes in Mo Yu's expression. Ba actions had exceeded the expectations of everyone. Instantly, everyone from the Crimson Sky Kingdom became grim. Ambassador Ba what is the meaning of this? Ni Yuan was the first to be unable to endure it, and his face sank as he asked with a low shout. Divine Might Marquis, I only want to know the background of this brother Mo Yu. I presume that since brother Mo Yu was able to possess this cultivation at such a young age, he isn't an ordinary person. But I've been in the Crimson Sky Kingdom for many days, yet I've never heard of any rumors related to him. Ba gaze never left Mo Yu as he spoke with a calm tone. This time, it's the friendly martial competition between the young geniuses of my Sun Ascent Kingdom and your Crimson Sky Kingdom. If a person that isn't from the Crimson Sky Kingdom interferes, then it seems to go against the intention of the agreement between me and His Majesty of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, right? Mo Yu was only around the age of 23 and possessed a cultivation at the first level of the nascent soul stage, and he'd even mastered a marvelous sword skill that caused one to acclaim it to be at the acme of perfection. As far as Ba was concerned, if Mo Yu was from the Crimson Sky Kingdom, then Mo Yu's name would have surely spread throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom since long ago, and not be unknown to the public like he is today. When Mo Yu appeared earlier, he noticed that most of the people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom didn't recognize Mo Yu, and he'd started to suspect Mo Yu since that moment. It was fine if Mo Yu had lost at the hands of Jie Lu, but Mo Yu had won now. According to the wager of the friendly martial competition between the young geniuses of the two kingdoms, if the young geniuses of the Crimson Sky Kingdom were victorious, then the Sun Ascent Kingdom would lose 3 years' worth of taxes to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. 3 years of tax wasn't a small amount, and he was naturally unwilling to submissively give it to the Crimson Sky Kingdom like this. Moreover, he came this time for the sake of winning this wager. Now that he had the chance to overthrow the fact that the Crimson Sky Kingdom had won, so he naturally wouldn't let go of it. Shameless. You members of the Sun Ascent Kingdom are such sore losers. HMPH. HMPH. Looks like your Sun Ascent Kingdom intends to go back on your word. The disciples of the 3 great clans of the Crimson Sky Kingdom were filled with righteous indignation as they let out a torrent of abuse. Ba face remained unchanged as he said indifferently, everyone, I'm only stating a fact. So long as brother Mo Yu is from the Crimson Sky Kingdom, then my Sun Ascent Kingdom is naturally willing to admit defeat. Ba stared fixedly at Mo Yu, and his sharp gaze seemed to want to penetrate into Mo Yu's heart. Brother Mo Yu, are you a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Ba asked once more. No. Mo Yu shook his head and said indifferently, I'm only representing my senior brother. I have no objections if you feel that I'm not a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom and this battle isn't valid. Of course, in this way, the young genius of your Sun Ascent Kingdom will have to fight my senior brother. Senior brother? Mo Yu's words caused Ba face to sink. At the first possible moment, Ba looked at Duan Lingtian who sat by the emperor's side. This young man is the junior brother of Duan Lingtian. The members of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's 3 great sects came to a sudden understanding when they heard Mo Yu. You are. At the same time that Ba looked at Duan Lingtian, his imposing manner swept out to press onto Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at Ba Is it fun? Is it fun? Ba was stunned. This young man actually said he was playing. However, he was able to discern that this young man wasn't affected by his imposing manner in the slightest, and the young man's cultivation was obviously not low. Since your junior brother isn't a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, then his battle with Jie Lu earlier isn't valid, what do you think? Ba glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian as he spoke slowly. If you're not convinced, then you can ask him to battle me. Duan Lingtian's tone was indifferent as if he was speaking of a trivial matter. Ba frowned when he saw Duan Lingtian was so confident. In the end, he still nodded and looked at Jie Lu. Jie Lu, battle this young genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Ba understood that this was his last chance. Moreover, he didn't dare believe that the young man that Mo Yu addressed as senior brother would have a cultivation that was stronger than Mo Yu. This young man's age was similar to Mo Yu. Although Mo Yu addressed him respectfully as senior brother, but who knew if it was due to manners and not because the young man had a strength that was stronger than Mo Yu. So no matter what, he still wanted to try. Yes. Zhe Lu nodded and returned to the center, then he looked at Duan Lingtian with a serious expression. Please come down and provide me with your advice. With the earlier experience taken from Mo Yu, he didn't dare underestimate his opponent just because his opponent was young. Meanwhile, Mo Yu returned to sit down by Ni Yuan's side, then three of them looked at Zhe Lu with a ridiculing gaze. The Emperor and Princess Bai Yao who sat by Duan Lingtian's side, and the members of the three great clans were all looking at Duan Lingtian with interest. Come down. Duan Lingtian glanced lazily at Zhe Lu then said indifferently, if you want me to come down, then it will depend on if you have the qualifications. The scene went deathly silent when Duan Lingtian said this. Just to come down to the battlegrounds depended on if his enemy possessed the qualifications. This, arrogant, too arrogant, only these thoughts remained in their hearts. Duan Lingtian has only left for a few years and he's actually become so arrogant. The people from the three great clans were all dumbstruck. The Emperor and Princess Bai Yao couldn't help but be stunned as well. The Duan Lingtian in their memories seemed to not be a person like this. At this moment, even Ni Yuan, Ni Fen, and Mo Wu were stunned, as they didn't know why Duan Lingtian would suddenly say this. Although they knew that Duan Lingtian's strength was sufficient to crush Zhe Lu, it still required him to go down to the center, right? Now, Duan Lingtian seemed to now even have the intention to go down to the battleground at the center. Kid, you're too arrogant. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba and Zhe Lu spoke out at almost the exact same time, and their expressions were extremely unsightly. They'd seen arrogant people, but they'd really never seen such an arrogant person. Then I'm curious, how do you see if I have the qualifications to make you come down? Zhe Lu looked at Duan Lingtian with a cold gaze. Right at the instant that Zhe Lu spoke, Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted and two dim lights seemed like two nether flames that blazed. At the instant that Zhe Lu finished speaking, kneel, Duan Lingtian shouted out coldly. The ear-piercing sound spread through the entire imperial garden, and it shocked the eardrums of the people present to the point their eardrums vibrated intensely. The people present hadn't reacted to this when they saw a scene that was unforgettable in their entire lifetime. Zhe Lu, who was originally arrogant, had knelt down on the ground with a thump, and his body was shivering as he mumbled. No, don't kill me, don't kill me. Zhe Lu's voice was filled with extreme terror and it caused others to feel a chill run down their spine when they heard this. He seemed as if he'd encountered an extremely terrifying thing. This, besides Duan Lingtian and Zhe Lu who were the people concerned, everyone present was dumbstruck. What's going on? Why did this Zhe Lu kneel when Duan Lingtian asked him to kneel? Moreover, Zhe Lu seemed to be extremely terrified when facing Duan Lingtian. No one knew what had happened. All this came too suddenly. Zhe Lu. The Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba-er's face was gloomy and he hurriedly sent a voice transmission into Zhe Lu's ears, wanting to wake Zhe Lu up. But, Zhe Lu seemed to have not perceived it at all, and he still knelt there shivering while he mumbled. I've already knelt, don't kill me, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. 465 Chapter 466, Do you still think I'm arrogant? Zhe Lu. When Ba-er noticed Zhe Lu had no reaction after he sent a voice transmission into Zhe Lu's ears, he hurriedly changed to shouting in a stern voice. But no matter how he shouted, Zhe Lu didn't have the slightest reaction. Right at this moment, a wave of a breeze blew past the imperial garden, and breeze that ought to have made others feel refreshed, instead seemed to have transformed into a wave of chilly wind at this moment. Besides Zhe Lu's muttering and begging for mercy, only Ba-er's ceaseless shouts remained in the imperial garden. What exactly did you do? Ba-er's gaze moved from Zhe Lu's to descend onto Duan Lingtian and he asked with a shout. Ba-er's voice contained traces of trembling mixed within. At this time, if he still didn't know that the young man by the emperor's side was the one that did it, then he would have lived so many years in vain. But the methods of this young man caused him to feel a chill run down his spine. The young man only sat on the spot without moving at all, and only a stern shout had made Zhe Lu kneel down on the floor before shivering and ceaselessly begging for mercy. What ability is this? Demonic technique. Instantly, this thought emerged within the minds of everyone present at almost the exact same time, and as soon as the thought emerged, it rooted itself to their minds and was difficult to cast aside. Could it be that senior brother Duan Lingtian really knows demonic techniques? The scene before him similarly exceeded Mo Yu's expectations. Meanwhile, Mo Yu couldn't help but recall the scenes he saw on the life and death arena on the peak of the 7-star sword sect's Dubi Peak a few days ago. The 2-year agreement between senior brother Duan Lingtian and Zither Young Master. Zither Young Master had suddenly lost his mind and could only be forced to lose at Duan Lingtian's hands. At that time, most of the members of the 7-star sword sect including Mo Yu had thought that Zither Young Master had really lost his mind, thus he lost to Duan Lingtian. But now, Mo Yu didn't think like this any longer. He recalled the scene from that time. When that Zither Young Master left, he said repeatedly that senior brother Duan Lingtian knows demonic techniques. Looks like senior brother Duan Lingtian really knows demonic techniques. No, perhaps it's only an ability that is difficult for me to understand. Mo Yu's heart trembled, and the gaze he shot at Duan Lingtian became even more reverent. Besides Princess Bai Yao, everyone else including the Emperor, Ni Yuan, and Ni Fen, felt a chill run down their spines when they looked at Duan Lingtian. The scene before their eyes was too bizarre. Now, do you still think I'm arrogant? Duan Lingtian gazed over calmly when faced with Ba Er's question, and he asked indifferently. Now, do you still think I'm arrogant? Duan Lingtian's words entered into the ears of everyone present, and it caused them to be unable to refrain from recalling the words Duan Lingtian spoke to Jie Lu earlier. If you want me to come down, then it will depend on if you have the qualifications. At that time, the first thought that came to mind when the people present heard this was, arrogant. Duan Lingtian was too arrogant. At that time, no one thought that Duan Lingtian would be able to defeat Jie Lu without going down to the center. But now, the people present all came to a sudden understanding. So it turned out that Duan Lingtian wasn't arrogant, but he really had the ability. The facts proved that Jie Lu indeed didn't possess the qualifications to make Duan Lingtian come down. Ba Er couldn't help but be infuriated when he heard Duan Lingtian, yet he had no way of refuting, and coldness silently rose within his heart. Who exactly are you? Ba Er took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice. Are you really a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom? What, do you want to doubt whether I'm a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom like you doubted my junior brother? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh as his eyes emitted a wisp of disdain. He'd always looked down on people who couldn't accept defeat. Tisk tisk, ambassador of the Sun Ascent Kingdom, you wouldn't be unable to accept defeat, right? You actually dare doubt whether he's a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom or not. Perhaps, you don't have any impression of the name Duan Lingtian, but you ought to have heard of Commander Duan of our Crimson Sky Kingdom's embroidered uniform guard from a few years ago, right? You ought to have heard of the Genius Star Mastermind Department student of our Crimson Sky Kingdom's Paladin Academy that didn't waste a single soldier to capture the Southern Champion Kingdom's southern barbaric city, right? You ought to have heard of the peerless genius that gave rise to much discussion in our Crimson Sky Kingdom a few years ago, right? At the Xiao clan's table, Xiao Xuan had a disdainful expression as he looked at Ba Er and spoke sarcastically. Early on when Xiao Xuan hadn't finished speaking, the face of the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, Ba Er, had become gloomy. As soon as Xiao Xuan finished speaking, he looked at Duan Lingtian as if he'd seen a ghost. You're that monster, Duan Lingtian, that was widely known throughout the Crimson Sky Kingdom a few years ago. No wonder when I heard them call out to you before the friendly martial competition started today, I felt that your name seemed to be familiar. It's actually you've actually returned. When Duan Lingtian had followed the emperor to arrive at the Imperial Garden earlier, Xiao Xuan and Xiao Yu had once called out his name. So, Ba Er had an impression of it. Presently, Ba Er's extremely unsightly expression was undoubtedly displaying that Ba Er had once heard of Duan Lingtian's deeds. Moreover, he knew that Duan Lingtian had left the Crimson Sky Kingdom a few years ago. I never expected that the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador knows of me. I'm truly overwhelmed with the unexpected favor. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at Ba Er, and he had a carefree expression that seemed as if it wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed before him. Ba Er had a long face as he knew clearly in his heart that he'd failed, that the Sun Ascent Kingdom had failed. The plan engineered by their Sun Ascent that could be considered to be perfect had completely failed because of Duan Lingtian, who was an external factor to the plan. They suffered a crushing defeat. Your Majesty of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, our Sun Ascent Kingdom admits defeat. I'll return right now and ask our kingdom's emperor to send over the 3-year of taxes that belongs to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Ba Er took a deep breath, and he intended to leave after bowing to the emperor. However, Jie Lu knelt there and remained unmoved, causing him to feel a wave of headache. He gritted his teeth and didn't swallow his pride to ask Duan Lingtian to stop in the end. Ba raised his hand and knocked Jie Lu out, then carried Jie Lu and Haiyi, who were knocked out before leaving in a sorry state with Zamyu. Ha 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 ha, most of the people from the Crimson Sky Kingdom, including the Emperor, couldn't refrain from bursting into laughter when they saw Ba and Zamu's sorry figures disappearing into the distance. They laughed without restraint, they laughed proudly and in satisfaction. After a short moment, the Emperor returned to his senses and looked at Duan Lingtian with a complicated gaze. Commander Duan, how did you do it earlier? How did I do it? Duan Lingtian's raised when he heard the Emperor, and he recalled the scene from before. Earlier, when the Sun Ascent Kingdom's young genius, Jie Lu, provoked him, he'd utilized his spiritual force to fuse into the soul brand and execute the soul skill, Thousand Illusions. Once Thousand Illusions was utilized, not to mention a mere first-level nascent soul stage martial artist, even a first-level void-prying stage martial artist that wasn't an inscription master would be unable to guard against it. Of course, if it was a first-level void-prying stage martial artist, then because of the martial artist's soul being comparatively stronger, even if Duan Lingtian utilized the soul skill, Thousand Illusions, it wouldn't come to the extent that the martial artist would be in a sorry state like Jie Lu. Jie Lu was only a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist, and before Duan Lingtian's spiritual force, Jie Lu's spiritual force was like a child facing an adult. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force crushed Jie Lu's spiritual force in every aspect, and Duan Lingtian was able to willfully trample upon Jie Lu. Earlier, Duan Lingtian had precisely built an extremely terrifying illusion space with the soul skill, Thousand Illusions, and used it to envelop Jie Lu. Within that illusion space, Jie Lu only persisted for a short moment before his spirit completely collapsed and he knelt on the ground begging for mercy. When he returned to his senses, Duan Lingtian noticed that it wasn't just the Emperor, the gazes of every present has descended onto him in unison. Obviously, they were extremely curious. I don't know how to explain that ability of mine, all of you can take it as a demonic technique. Duan Lingtian shrugged as he spoke slowly. The people present didn't continue asking when they discerned that Duan Lingtian was unwilling to say any more. After all, everyone had a secret that belonged to themselves, and getting to the bottom of it would only cause others to feel detest. Alas, Big Brother Lingtian, when will my spiritual force be able to break through to the void initiation stage? If my spiritual force is able to break through to the void initiation stage, then I'll be able to awaken my soul brand and comprehend soul skills. Hee, at that time, I want to go and scare people as well. The naive voice of a young girl that belonged to the little gold mouse entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Scare people, but, when this naive voice entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, it caused him to feel a slight chill run down his spine. This little gold isn't a good person in the first place. If she were to awaken her soul brand and comprehend soul skills, then wouldn't she become extremely cocky? I'm happy today, prepare a banquet at noon, and we'll consider it as welcoming Commander Duan and his junior brother, Divine Might Marquis and everyone, all of you stay back and join the welcoming dinner for Commander Duan and his junior brother. The Emperor had a brilliant smile on his face as he spoke to everyone present. Yes, Your Majesty, there was naturally no one who would refuse the Emperor's invitation. Subsequently, the Emperor gave the command, and the eunuchs and maids in the imperial palace went to prepare to banquet. During the welcoming banquet, Duan Lingtian and Mo Yu became the absolute center of attention. Especially the patriarchs of the three great clans even beat around the bush as they asked Mo Yu if he was engaged, causing Mo Yu to flush red with embarrassment and find it difficult to deal with. Senior brother Duan Lingtian, Mo Yu could only seek help from Duan Lingtian. However, Duan Lingtian himself was busy enough dealing with them, so would he help Mo Yu? He instead pushed Mo Yu into the pit of hell. Mo Yu, I think that the three patriarchs are correct, you aren't young any longer, even if you don't get married, setting up a few marriages is a good thing as well. Right, the three patriarchs hurriedly agreed, and the gaze they shot at Mo Yu was simply like wolves who'd seen a little sheep. When he saw this, Mo Yu could only say to himself, I've been careless in making friends. Commander Duan, accompany Bai Yao for a walk. The Emperor looked at Princess Bai Yao then looked at Duan Lingtian, and his gaze was complicated. During these few years, he'd wanted to find a groom for his daughter on many occasions, but this daughter of his only thought of Duan Lingtian every day. This caused him, who was the father, to be exceedingly helpless. How could Duan Lingtian not be able to discern the emperor's thoughts, and when he saw the anticipation in Princess Bai Yao's eyes, he nodded and stood up before leaving the banquet with Princess Bai Yao. 466 Chapter 467, Breakthrough, 7th Level of the Nascent Soul Stage. As he walked shoulder to shoulder with Princess Bai Yao in the Imperial Palace, Duan Lingtian had the intention to reveal that he didn't hope that Princess Bai Yao would waste her lifetime waiting for him. Unexpectedly, Princess Bai Yao's attitude was exactly similar to Xiao Lan. She spoke in a manner as if she would marry no one but Duan Lingtian and she would rather wait for him alone. Duan Lingtian felt a wave of helplessness. Could it be that I've really brought my charm from my previous life over? Duan Lingtian was secretly smug. As the king of mercenaries on earth in his previous life, there was no lack of outstanding women by his side. Some wanted to marry him, some wanted to bear his child, some were willing to give everything for him. Looks like, having too great charm isn't a good thing sometimes. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he sighed to himself. Never mind, I'll leave it up to fate. Duan Lingtian sighed rather helplessly when faced with Princess Bai Yao's resoluteness. What ability did he have to actually make so many outstanding women willing to hold on to him and not request any status or reciprocation? After the welcoming banquet ended, Duan Lingtian and Mo Yu had once again sat into the Divine Might Marquis Estate's carriage and left the Imperial Palace with Ni Yuan and Ni Fen. Little Tian, the ability you executed today truly shocked me, however, it's good this way. If you exerted a strength at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage before the Sun Ascent Kingdom's ambassador, I wonder how he'd look from the shock. Ni Fen looked at Duan Lingtian and at the same time he sighed with emotion and laughed, his gaze was extremely complicated. That day when he saw Duan Lingtian for the first time, Duan Lingtian was only an 18-year-old youth that was much inferior to him. Now, 5 years had passed, and Duan Lingtian had surpassed him in all aspects to become an existence that he could only look up to. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly, then looked towards the nearby Ni Yuan. Uncle Ni, are you extremely curious about the ability I utilized earlier? On the way, Duan Lingtian was able to notice that Ni Yuan was hesitating to speak, and he vaguely guessed Ni Yuan's thoughts. It's alright if it's inconvenient for you to say, Uncle Ni was just shocked by you for a time. Ni Yuan shook his head and smiled, and didn't have the intention of forcing Duan Lingtian to tell him. Actually, it isn't a secret. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, and for a time, he also drew the attention of Ni Fen and Mo Yu. Obviously, Ni Fen and Mo Yu were both extremely interested towards the ability that Duan Lingtian utilized on the Sun Ascent Kingdom's young genius, Jie Lu. Especially Mo Yu. That day, he'd once seen Duan Lingtian use this ability to subdue Zither Young Master. The Zither Young Master was one of the 5 great young masters that were the most outstanding in the younger generation of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and his cultivation had already stepped into the half-step void stage. However, even then, before Duan Lingtian's mysterious ability, Zither Master still was unable to escape from losing miserably. Uncle Ni, how much do you know about the soul? And how much do you know about spiritual force? Duan Lingtian looked at Ni Yuan and asked. Ni Yuan pondered for a moment before continuing. The soul is the foundation of a person, and the location of the consciousness. As for spiritual force, I only know that it's closely related to inscription masters. It was exactly spiritual force that inscription masters combined with various special materials to inscribe inscriptions. Moreover, spiritual force is also called as the energy of the soul, and it's sourced from the soul. Ni Yuan said to Duan Lingtian, I only know this. Uncle Ni, you're correct. This is the concept of the soul and spiritual force. However, in Cloud Continent, there are instead some formidable human martial artists that are able to attack by relying on spiritual force. They stand at the peak of Cloud Continent, and they are called martial emperors. Duan Lingtian said slowly. Martial emperor. Ni Yuan was slightly moved when he heard Duan Lingtian. Whereas Ni Fen and Mo Yu instead had puzzled expressions as they'd obviously never heard of a martial emperor. Martial emperors really exist. Ni Yuan's breathing became rapid. Of course they do. Duan Lingtian's eyes reveal a trace of yearning. Although there aren't many martial emperor stage experts on Cloud Continent, there aren't few either. All of them are existences that stand at the peak of Cloud Continent, and they command the clouds and the rain. Their martial strength is extraordinary and world-shaking. As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian felt his blood boil and he was slightly excited. After all, he'd fused with the memories of a formidable martial emperor. The rebirth Martial Emperor had once stood at the peak of the Martial Emperor experts on Cloud Continent. Father, what are you and little Tien talking about? What's a Martial Emperor? Nifen frowned as he asked. Mo Yu looked at Duan Lingtian as well, as he similarly didn't understand the conversation between Duan Lingtian and Ni Yuan. Martial Emperor, what's that? Ask little Tien to tell you. Ni Yuan shook his head and sighed, and he suddenly felt that his knowledge seemed to be far inferior from this nephew of his. Big brother Ni, a martial emperor is an existence that stands above a martial monarch, whereas a martial monarch is an existence that stands above the void transformation stage. Under Duan Lingtian's explanation, Ni Fen finally obtained a certain level of understanding towards the levels of cultivation at the peak of Cloud Continent. I've heard of the martial monarch, yet it's the first time I'm hearing about the martial emperor. I never imagined that there was still an existence that stood above the martial monarch in the Cloud Continent. Ni Fen couldn't help but be moved. Mo Yu had an expression of shock as well. A martial emperor stage expert. What a heaven-defying existence would that be? It was difficult to imagine. Little Tien, you said earlier that human martial artists are only able to utilize the spiritual force to attack once they attain the martial emperor stage, then the ability you utilized earlier is. Ni Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian and asked the key point. The ability I executed earlier isn't a spiritual force attack, and it can be only considered as a type of spiritual force interference ability. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian spoke of the matter related to the soul brand. Including the matter of the soul brand only appeared in some demon beasts, and how he's obtained the soul brand that day. He'd spoke of all of it and didn't hide it. This luck of yours is simply heaven-defying. That's a soul brand left behind by an inscription master from the foreign lands, yet you were actually able to encounter it. Ni Fen had an expression of jealousy and envy. Something left behind by an inscription master from the foreign lands, and it was even in existence at the void transformation stage that had left it behind, yet it was actually obtained by Duan Lingtian. This luck would probably cause anyone to feel envious. Ni Yuan and Mo Yu looked at Duan Lingtian with a complicated gaze, as they both had the same thought as Ni Fen, and thought that Duan Lingtian's luck was heaven-defying. Duan Lingtian recalled the incident that occurred that day when he obtained the soul brand left behind by the inscription master, and he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. At that time, I'd originally already left the abode. Later on, it was because of Elder Kong who was interested in that abode that caused me to bring them back there. Otherwise, I'd probably have missed it. When he thought about how he almost brushed past and missed the soul brand, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but feel a wave of fear when he recalled it now. If he didn't possess that soul brand, then he wouldn't be able to master the soul skill, Thousand Illusions. If he was unable to master the soul skill, Thousand Illusions, then it would have been impossible for him to have seized the victory in the 2-year agreement with Zither Young Master. Presently, the soul skill, Thousand Illusions, seemed to have become a great trump card of Duan Lingtian's, a trump card with shocking might. Before long, the carriage returned to the Divine Might Marquis estate. After bidding his farewell with Ni Yuan and Ni Fen, Duan Lingtian brought Mo Yu along to stroll all around the inner city, and they returned to the courtyard house after strolling for some time. In the subsequent days, Duan Lingtian didn't step a foot out of his house's door, and he either cultivated or accompanied his mother. His days were passed in extreme comfort. 1 month later, Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on the bed within a spacious room. The origin energy in his body endlessly pulsed and circulated according to the 4th form of the 9 Dragons' War Sovereign technique, the Windworm form. At this moment, the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body had already increased to the breaking point. I hope I can succeed this time. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and the origin energy in his body seemed to have transformed into raging waves that fiercely collided with the last bottleneck of the 6th level of the nascent soul stage. Bang! The bottleneck loosened, yet wasn't smashed open, and it was obviously still lacking slightly. Charged through it in one go. Duan Lingtian was clear in his heart that once he broke through this bottleneck, his cultivation would be like a fish leaping over the dragon gate, obtaining a tremendous leap in quality. Bang, bang, time after time, Duan Lingtian seemed to utterly not know exhaustion as he stuffed the nascent nurturing pills one by one into his mouth as if they were worthless. Almost, after continuing for a day and night, Duan Lingtian was already dripping with sweat, and his spirits were drooping. But he still clenched his teeth tightly and stubbornly persisted. He knew clearly in his heart that if he were to miss this opportunity, then his hard work from before would have been wasted, and he wasn't willing to make his previous effort come to nothing. Bang! Finally, everything comes to one who persists. Under Duan Lingtian's tireless efforts, he'd finally charged through the last bottleneck at the 6th level of the nascent soul stage and completed his breakthrough. 7th level nascent soul stage. I've finally broken through. Duan Lingtian opened his eyes after he completed the breakthrough, and his eyes were bright like an array of stars as they flickered with an exceptionally dazzling light. 7th level of the nascent soul stage. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and lightly clenched his fist, and origin energy leapt about on his fist. Instantly, 1011 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above him. Whoosh! After a short moment, a ball of condensed flames blazed with a flip of Duan Lingtian's palm. Pill fire. Presently, the pill fire that burned on Duan Lingtian's hand was simply different, like the difference between the heaven and earth when compared with before. In the past, his pill fire was green in color. Now, his pill fire was azure in color. If another alchemist was here and saw the pill fire on Duan Lingtian's hand, the alchemist would surely be extremely astonished. A grade 5 pill fire appearing in the hand of a 23-year-old young man was almost impossible. A 23-year-old grade 5 alchemist. There probably wasn't an existence that was so monstrous amongst all the alchemists on Cloud Continent. Grade 5 alchemist. A wisp of a smile appeared on Duan Lingtian's face as he gazed at the pill fire in his hand. Along with a command in his heart, the pill fire in his palm changed, it became raging and fierce, and it was completely another opposite when compared to the pill fire from before. The flame now was still azure colored, yet its characteristics was completely different. Grade 5 weapon flame. I'm finally able to refine grade 5 spirit weapons. Duan Lingtian's face emitted a satisfied smile when they saw the azure-colored weapon flame that slowly rose on his palm. 467 Chapter 468, Refining Void Advancement Pills. A 23-year-old grade 5 alchemist and grade 5 weapons craftsman. Once it spread out, it could be imagined how many alchemists and weapons craftsmen would be ashamed to the point they wanted to knock into a wall and die. However, all this was nothing to Duan Lingtian. To him, so long as his cultivation was sufficient and his origin energy satisfied the conditions, he would be able to condense the pill fire and weapon flame at the limit of his cultivation. Once my cultivation breaks through to the first level of the void prying stage, my pill fire and weapon flame will be able to improve once again and improve to the 4th grade. At that time, I'll be a grade 4 alchemist and grade 4 weapons craftsman. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed and his face was filled with confidence. Unfortunately, the advancement of the pill fire and weapon flame after that is instead comparatively difficult. Duan Lingtian sighed when he thought of pill fire and weapon flame at the 3rd grade and above. Grade 4 pill fire and weapon flame could be condensed with origin energy at the 1st level of the void prying stage. Grade 3 pill fire and weapon flame required origin energy at the 1st level of the void initiation stage to be condensed. Grade 2 pill fire and weapon flame instead required origin energy at the 1st level of the void interpretation stage to condense. Grade 1 pill fire and weapon flame corresponded to the origin energy at the 1st level of the void transformation stage. If one wants to become a grade 1 alchemist or grade 1 weapons craftsman, then besides requiring an extremely high natural talent in alchemy and weapons refinement, the requirement of natural talent in the martial Tao is extremely high as well. After all, if one's cultivation is unable to break through to the void transformation stage, then it would be utterly impossible to condense grade 1 pill fire and grade 1 weapon flame with the origin energy. Duan Lingtian swiftly searched through the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, and he couldn't help but sigh with emotion in his heart. In Cloud Continent, the reason grade 1 alchemists and grade 1 weapons craftsmen were scarce was because there were very few people that could achieve such accomplishments in 2 domains. All the people in Cloud Continent that were able to become grade 1 alchemists and grade 1 weapons craftsmen were all top figures amongst geniuses. I'm already a grade 5 alchemist now and I'm completely able to refine a void advancement pill myself. However, the main material to refine a void advancement pill is a problem. Duan Lingtian's thoughts spun and he thought of the void advancement pill. The void advancement pill was a grade 5 medicinal pill that was able to assist a half-step void stage martial artist directly break through to the void prying stage. However, its side effects were extremely great. It would be impossible for the martial artist that consumed the void advancement pill to break through to the void initiation stage in his entire lifetime. A person who'd consumed a void advancement pill was comparably to someone who'd cut off the opportunity to comprehend concept. Inability to comprehend concept meant that the martial artist was unable to break through to the void initiation stage. To a certain extent, the void advancement pill was a heaven-defying medicinal pill that changed one's fate, So once it's consumed, one had to pay an extremely great price. Presently, Duan Ling Tian followed along the memories of the rebirth martial emperor and completely understood the void advancement pill. The main material of the void advancement pill can be replaced with monkey wine. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian found out about something from the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. Earlier, I was still thinking that main material for the void advancement pill was extremely difficult to find in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. But I never imagined that the rebirth martial emperor has helped me solve this problem. Duan Ling Tian withdrew his mind from the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, then he withdrew all the other materials required to refine a void advancement pill. Besides the main ingredient, the other materials were extremely ordinary and Duan Ling Tian just happened to have them in his possession. When Duan Ling Tian took out the cauldron, he couldn't help but be stunned as he'd noticed an extremely important problem. Refining a grade 5 medicinal pill required the usage of a grade 5 cauldron. Fortunately, the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Imperial Palace stored materials to refine a grade 5 cauldron, and when the Emperor found out that Duan Ling Tian had a need, he generously gifted it to Duan Ling Tian. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian refined the first grade 5 spirit weapon in his entire life, a cauldron. Relying on the grade 5 spirit cauldron and the pile of medicinal materials and monkey wine, Duan Ling Tian successfully refined 3 void advancement pills. Duan Ling Tian gave one of them to the Emperor. Your Majesty, Duan Ling Tian is extremely grateful for obtaining your care for so long. Take this void advancement pill as a little kind feelings of mine. Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled as he spoke. The Emperor gazed at the medicinal pill in his hand that contained flowing lights revolving atop it, and he couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Void advancement pill. This is a void advancement pill. Even though he was the Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, the void advancement pill was similarly an existence that was out of reach to him. Now, he held one in his hand. Commander Duan, I really don't know how to thank you. The Emperor sighed and his gaze was complicated. Although he'd helped Duan Ling Tian quite a great deal, as far as he was concerned, those things were completely not worth mentioning when compared with a void advancement pill. After all, a void advancement pill was equal to a void prying stage martial artist. Within the Imperial Palace, there were many half-step void stage martial artists, yet there wasn't a single existence at the void prying stage besides him. Now that he had this void advancement pill, it would also mean that a void prying stage martial artist would be born in the Imperial Kingdom. Duan Ling Tian's action of gifting the void advancement pill to him was practically equivalent to gifting a void prying stage martial artist to him. Don't mention it, Your Majesty, I came to the Imperial Palace today exactly for the sake of gifting this void advancement pill to Your Majesty. Now that I've gifted it, I ought to leave. Duan Ling Tian bid his farewells to the Emperor, then left the throne room and left the Imperial Palace. After leaving the Imperial Palace, Duan Ling Tian went to the Duan clan estate. It was the first time he'd returned to the Duan clan after returning to the Crimson Sky Kingdom for a month. The Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Ruhuo, personally came out to greet Duan Ling Tian and when he heard Duan Ling Tian had come. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian met the Duan clan Grand Elder, Duan Zhen, once again. The old man was brimming with energy and vitality, and he looked as good as ever. Little fellow, the patriarch told me about what happened in the Imperial Palace 1 month ago. I truly never imagined that you have such great ability now. Right, which sect did you join after heading to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? Duan Zhen looked at Duan Ling Tian, and a trace of a sheen of anticipation flashed past his muddy eyes. Great Elder, wanting to know which sect I joined is not your true intention, wanting to know if I've obtained a void advancement pill for the clan is the truth, right? Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled as he spoke straightforwardly. This caused Duan Zhen to be extremely embarrassed. Grand Elder, I was lucky and succeeded in carrying out the task. When he saw it was about time, Duan Ling Tian withdrew the one of the 2 remaining void advancement pills in his hand and passed it to Duan Zhen. This is a void advancement pill. Duan Zhen received the medicinal pill that was contained flowing lights revolving atop it from Duan Ling Tian, then he stared fixedly at it, his eyeballs almost dropping out from his staring, and his face was filled with excitement. The Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Ruhuo, the 4th master of the Duan clan, Duan Ruhong, and all the Duan clan elders who stood at the side all stared fixedly at the medicinal pill in Duan Zhen's hand. Void advancement pill. This is a void advancement pill. What, Grand Elder, are you worried I would deceive you? Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. Grand Elder, this Void Advancement Pill possesses a purity that far surpasses ordinary Void Advancement Pill. Once it's consumed by a martial artist that had been stuck at the half-step Void stage for many years would have an over 90% chance of instantly breaking through to the Void Prying stage. Duan Zhen's old and shaky figure shook when he heard Duan Lingtian, and his face revealed a shocked expression. Is this true? Although he'd never seen a Void Advancement Pill, he'd heard of it. But it was the first time he'd heard of such an abnormal Void Advancement Pill. Duan Lingtian smiled as he said, if Grand Elder doesn't believe me, you're welcome to consume it and try. Haha, good. Under the gazes of all the higher-ups of the Duan clan, Duan Zhen consumed the Void Advancement Pill and closed his eyes. After a short moment, whoosh, it was as if a gust of wind swept out towards the surroundings from Duan Zhen at the center, and it blew on the clothes of Duan Lingtian and all the Duan clan higher-ups to cause their clothes to flutter in the wind. Meanwhile, everyone was able to sense that the aura on Duan Zhen's body had changed, it had become even more profound, and even more unfathomable. Grand Elder, you, Duan Ruhuo stared blankly at Duan Zhen with an expressions of anticipation and nervousness. The other Duan clan elders stared fixedly at Duan Zhen as well. Only Duan Lingtian sat nearby with one leg crossed over the other, and he held up a teacup and drank tea in a composed manner, as if he wasn't anxious in the slightest. Ha 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 ha, in next to no time, Duan Zhen's hearty laughter sounded out. His laughter was like a wave of thunderclaps that shook the audience hall to the point some small decorations shook endlessly, and it caused all the Duan clan higher-ups to be dumbstruck. They could clearly feel that at the same time Duan Zhen was laughing loudly, the imposing aura that swept out of his body was an imposing aura that surpassed the half-step Void stage. Void Prying stage. The Grand Elder had directly broken through to the Void Prying stage. Congratulations, Grand Elder. Congratulations, Grand Elder. Instantly, all the Duan clan higher-ups congratulated Duan Zhen. Little fellow, thank you. Duan Zhen paid no attention to Duan Ruhuo and the others, he instead looked at the nearby Duan Lingtian and slightly bowed. Duan Lingtian was originally leisurely drinking tea, and when he saw Duan Zhen turn to look towards him and even bow to thank him, it shocked Duan Lingtian to the point he hurriedly jumped away. Grand Elder, why are you doing this? If my mother knows that I received a bow from you, then wouldn't she lecture me to death? Grand Elder, you can't do this to me. Duan Zhen was first stunned when he saw Duan Lingtian's actions, then he couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, the matter from today won't enter into your mother's ears, if anyone dares talk too much, then I'll pull out their tongue. As he spoke up to hear, Duan Zhen's gaze flashed past the faces of all the Duan clan higher-ups. Even the patriarch, Duan Ruhuo, wasn't excluded. This caused all the Duan clan higher-ups to be at a loss of whether to laugh or cry. However, in next to no time, the gazes of these Duan clan higher-ups descended onto Duan Lingtian and their gazes flickered with an unusual sheen. Don't look at me all of you, I only have the Void Advancement Pill that Grand Elder consumed in my possession, even that Void Advancement Pill was something I asked my master for many years to obtain, and he was truly unable to endure it, thus he requested a grade 5 alchemist to refine it. When Duan Lingtian saw the burning gazes of all the Duan clan higher-ups, how could Duan Lingtian not know their thoughts, and he shrugged as he spread his hands out and spoke. This caused everyone to experience a wave of disappointment. Grand Elder, if there's nothing else, then I'll take my leave first. Duan Lingtian put down the teacup and smiled to Duan Zhen. Little fellow, the Duan clan will always remember what you did for the Duan clan. The Duan clan let you and your mother down in the incident all those years ago. From today onwards, the Duan clan will try its best to repay everything the Duan clan owes the two of you by twice as much. Duan Zhen said with a serious expression. Duan Lingtian disregarded past grievances and had produced a Void Prying stage martial artist for the Duan clan, and he was undoubtedly a person who'd rendered great service to the Duan clan. 468 Chapter 469, The Swamp of Death. Grand Elder, don't mention it. Duan Lingtian didn't take Duan Zhen's heartfelt words seriously. He'd utterly never thought of wanting the Duan clan to repay him and his mother. He'd gifted a Void Advancement Pill to the Duan clan today only for the sake of the agreement he made with the Duan clan that day, it was only an entanglement of benefit. He'd only fulfilled his promise from that day. The Duan clan's feelings between others depended on one's position and they were cold and detached, and this was something that he'd seen through since long ago. After he left the Duan clan estate, Duan Lingtian headed to the Divine Might Marquis estate and sent the last void advancement pill in his possession into the hands of Ni Yuan. Little Tian, what's this? Ni Yuan looked in wonder at the medicinal pill Duan Lingtian passed to him and asked curiously. Flowing lights revolved on the medicinal pill, and one could know it was extraordinary with a single glance. Uncle Ni, this is a void advancement pill. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Ni Yuan was instantly stunned when he heard this, then he spoke with an excited expression. This, little Tian, where did you get this void advancement pill from? Would Uncle Ni believe it if I said I refined it myself? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he asked. Ni Yuan's excited expression instantly froze and he stared blankly at Duan Lingtian. Little Tian, this void advancement pill was refined by you. This is a grade 5 medicinal pill. A grade 5 medicinal pill can only be refined by a grade 5 alchemist. As he finished speaking, his tone contained traces of trembling. Although he'd been shocked by Duan Lingtian on many occasions, he still didn't dare believe it now. Grade 5 alchemist. Up until now, there seemed to have never been a single grade 5 alchemist that has appeared in their Crimson Sky Kingdom. Even if it was the guild master of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Alchemist Guild's main guild, an existence that had come from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, was only a grade 6 alchemist. Hiss. Duan Lingtian naturally guessed Ni Yuan's thoughts when he saw Ni Yuan's expression, then he lightly smiled as he flipped his palm, then a strand of azure-colored flame lit up from his palm. 5. Grade 5 Pill Fire. Although Ni Yuan hadn't met a grade 5 alchemist and had never seen a grade 5 pill fire. But one who'd never eaten pork ought to have seen a pig run, and he'd once seen records related to pill fire in an ancient book. According to his knowledge, the grade 5 pill fire was azure in color. After Duan Lingtian withdrew the fire on his hand, Ni Yuan was dumbstruck for a long time before recovering from his shock, then he looked at Duan Lingtian as if he was looking at a freak. Little Tian, no wonder Ni Yuan said you're a freak amongst freaks, an abnormal amongst abnormals. Now it would seem that his words aren't completely illogical. Never had Duan Lingtian imagined that Ni Yuan was stunned for so long, and in the end he burst out with such words. This caused Duan Lingtian to feel a wave of speechlessness. A 23-year-old grade 5 alchemist. If this were to spread out, then not to mention our Crimson Sky Kingdom, even the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, the Darkstone Empire, and even the Darken Dynasty would probably be shocked. Ni Yuan shook his head and sighed, and his gaze was extremely complicated. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. Darken Dynasty. Not to mention the Darken Dynasty, even if it was the entire foreign lands, it was quite unlikely for a 23-year-old grade 5 alchemist to appear. At least, in the 2 lifetimes of the rebirth Martial Emperor, he's encountered countless grade 5 alchemists. But the youngest was already over 30. According to the memories of the rebirth Martial Emperor, before he'd relied on the 3 lives rebirth technique to undergo his second cycle of rebirth, the 30-year-old grade 5 alchemist had already become a grade 2 alchemist, and the natural talent of that alchemist could be easily imagined. Supposedly, grade 5 pill fire required origin energy at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above to condense. Little Tian, could it be that you? Ni Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian as if he wanted to confirm something. Uncle Ni, you're correct, I've already broken through to the 7th level of the nascent soul stage. Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile to Ni Yuan as he spoke. 7th level nascent soul stage. After he obtained Duan Lingtian's confirmation, Ni Yuan's mood that had originally calmed had surged once again. If your father is still alive, and he knew he had such a promising son, he would probably even wake up laughing while he sleeps. Ni Yuan caught his breath and sighed. Duan Lingtian brows raised. His deadbeat dad. There were many things weighing on Duan Lingtian's mind when he left the Divine Might Marquis estate, then he directly went to see Li Ru after returning home. Mother, do you where father went all those years ago? Duan Lingtian asked directly. Tian, why are you suddenly asking this? Li Ru was slightly bewildered. I want to go there and look, perhaps, I can confirm if father is still alive. Duan Lingtian had a serious expression as he spoke. No, Li Ru's face went pale and directly rejected this thought of Duan Lingtian's. You can't go to that place, absolutely not. At this moment, Li Ru's expression was serious and exceedingly firm. The more Li Ru was like this, the more curious Duan Lingtian was in his heart. Mother, what sort of place is that? Tian, you can't go to that place no matter what. Mother has already lost your father, I can't lose you as well. Li Ru spoke seriously. Mom, what are you talking about? You won't lose me. Duan Lingtian shook his head and he felt his mother was worrying unnecessarily. Mother, when father went to that place, his cultivation had only just broken through to the nascent soul stage. Now, my cultivation isn't inferior to father from all those years ago, there won't be any danger. No, Li Ru was unprecedentedly obstinate. Tian, mother knows you want to find your father, so does mother. But, that place is too bizarre. After your father went missing, the Duan clan sent out a half-step void stage ancestor to personally go to that place. But in the end, even that formidable ancestor went completely missing, as if he'd completely vanished into thin air. As she finished speaking, Li Ru's eyes emitted a wisp of terror. An existence at the half-step void stage didn't come out alive after entering that place. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's heart was even more itchy and intolerable. Of course, he'd also realized that place wasn't simple. Exactly what sort of place is this place that's able to make a half-step void stage expert be unable to come out alive? Mom, I understand, I never expected that place is so terrifying. Don't worry, I won't go. Duan Lingtian pretended to have a lingering fear in his heart as he spoke. Li Ru's face finally revealed a smile once again, but Duan Lingtian was able to notice the smile was forced. Looks like mom is thinking of my deadbeat dad again. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. I'll first go inquire about where that place is during these few days, then, I'll stay at home for a few days before departing. Otherwise, it would surely arouse mom's suspicion. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he came to a decision. Guaranteeing to his mother that he wouldn't go to that place was only an expedient measure. He didn't want to make his mother worry. No matter what, he was surely going to that place. With little gold, I don't believe that there's any place Duan Lingtian, can't go to in the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom. A wisp of bright light flashed in the depths of Duan Lingtian's eyes. Little Gold was a third-level void-prying stage demon beast and had even comprehended half-step advanced lightning force. Even in the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom, she was considered to be in existence at the top. Duan Lingtian went to the Divine Might Marquis estate again the next day, and he went to see Ni Yuan. Uncle Ni, do you know where my father disappeared all those years ago? Duan Lingtian went straight to the point and asked. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Ni Yuan's face went grim. Little Tian, you must not go to that place. Uncle Ni, I'm only curious and don't intend to go there. Duan Lingtian was speechless, as he never expected that Ni Yuan's reaction would be as intense as his mother's. Of course, he knew that Ni Yuan was concerned about it and didn't have any other intention. Ni Yuan heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. It's good that you don't intend to go. Even if a void-prying stage martial artist enters that place, the martial artist might not be able to come out alive. That year, a half-step void stage expert of the Duan clan entered that place and he vanished into thin air, never to be heard of again, like your father. Duan Lingtian nodded. He'd found out about this from his mother yesterday. In next to no time, under Ni Yuan's narration, Duan Lingtian found out about the place that this deadbeat dad had vanished all those years ago. That place was a swamp that was called the Swamp of Death by the people of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Supposedly, fierce beasts could be found everywhere within the Swamp of Death, and there were even many formidable demon beasts existing in the depths of the Swamp of Death. However, the most terrifying part of the Swamp of Death wasn't these beasts but instead the swamp itself. Once one enters the Swamp of Death, then unless one steps on the ground, one would be utterly unable to notice the existence of the swamp. Many martial artists that entered the Swamp of Death didn't even have the opportunity to go deeper when they fell into the swamp and became the nutrients for the Swamp of Death. The Swamp of Death. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed and was filled with yearning. That Swamp of Death is perhaps a hell. That's difficult to fathom for other martial artists, but under my spiritual force, it's instead an even ground that couldn't conceal itself. Even if the naked eye is unable to see through the swamp, but my spiritual force can sense it. This was something that Duan Lingtian was extremely confident of. In the subsequent 10 days, Duan Lingtian spent it all accompanying by Li Ru's side. After 10 days, Duan Lingtian notified Li Ru before leaving the Imperial City. He didn't bring Mo Yu along when he left the Imperial City this time, and he only brought the little gold mouse. In front of Li Ru, he'd said that he was returning to Aurora City to visit some old friends, and Li Ru didn't doubt him. The Swamp of Death was situated at the Fair Sun County that was east of the Imperial City, and it wasn't far from the Imperial City. With the little gold mouse's speed, Duan Lingtian only spent an hour before arriving in the sky above the Fair Sun County's county city. The Swamp of Death was precisely located in the northern area of the Fair Sun County. Fair Sun County. It seems to be slightly familiar, it's as if I've heard of it somewhere. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he sat on the little gold mouse's back and looked down at the Fair Sun County's city. He could be sure that he'd never come to the Fair Sun County before, and this was his first time. If I can't remember, then I won't bother thinking about it. Little gold, go over there. Duan Lingtian pointed towards the north as he spoke to the little gold mouse that had enlarged herself. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse cried out before her enormous body shook, and she seemed to have transformed into a shooting star that fell towards the northern area of the Fair Sun County city. 469 Chapter 470, Crimson Armadillo. This is the Swamp of Death. The little gold mouse's speed was extremely swift, and she brought Duan Lingtian to a vast forest that was serene in next to no time. This forest was in ruins and it emitted a wave of a gloomy aura. Not only that, there was black mist that coiled in the sky above this forest all year long, enveloping the entire forest within it, causing others to not dare easily enter the air above the forest. After all, no one knew if there were any formidable fierce beasts and demon beasts lying in ambush within the black mist atop the forest. The demon beasts and fierce beasts that grew up here were extremely familiar with the environment here, and an outsider would surely suffer a loss when trespassing into the forest. Little Gold, go down. Duan Lingtian told the little gold mouse to head down, and he started seriously sizing up the forest before him after he asked the little gold mouse to shrink. Unlike the verdant color of an ordinary forest, the trees in this forest were either pitch black withered trees or dark gray withered trees. The leaves that grew out from these withered trees only had these two colors as well, and it made the entire forest seem exceedingly bizarre. Not a trace of human habitation could be seen around the forest. As expected of the Swamp of Death that even void-prying stage martial artists go pale when speaking about it, it's virtually an isolated place. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Little Gold, let's go in. Duan Lingtian brought along the little gold mouse to walk into this strange forest, and Duan Lingtian's spiritual force being maintained extended out as he carefully detected the circumstances in the surroundings. At the beginning, Duan Lingtian only heard waves of crow cries that were unpleasant to the ear, but he didn't notice a swamp. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder. She seemed to be slightly intolerant as she heard the wave of crow cries, and she started crying out sharply as well. Squeak. Squeak squeak. The sharp cry carried origin energy along as it tore through the sky. Instantly, a wave of restless crow cries sounded out. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian had a wave of clamorous sounds of the flapping of wings that gradually moved into the distance. The crow cries stopped abruptly. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse was slightly complacent after driving away the flock of crows, then said to Duan Lingtian via voice transmission. Big brother Lingtian, I'm formidable, right? Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes at the little gold mouse. It's only a flock of wild beast crows, but look how complacent you are. The little gold mouse's small head drooped down in low spirits when she heard this. Duan Lingtian continued to walk inwards of the Swamp of Death. After around half an hour, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force finally sensed the location of the swamp. Duan Lingtian avoided these swamps and continued inwards. Meanwhile, fierce beasts started to flash out from nearby to launch sneak attacks on Duan Lingtian. Squeak. However, these fierce beasts didn't even have the chance to approach Duan Lingtian when accompanied by a sudden cry, their bodies were penetrated by a tiny sword light and they were directly killed. The little gold mouse stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder, holding the pocket-sized spirit sword in her hand as she sized up the surroundings vigilantly. The more inward we go, the more swamps there are. Unless they'd broken through to the void-prying stage, it's extremely difficult for ordinary martial artists to circumnavigate these swamps. Along with walking through the swamp, Duan Lingtian obtained a certain level of understanding of the Swamp of Death. Of course, he knew that this was only the outer area of the Swamp of Death. That deadbeat dad of mine wouldn't have slipped into one of these swamps, right? Thinking up to here caused Duan Lingtian to feel a chill run down his spine. If that deadbeat dad of his was really swallowed by the swamp, then he would really be gone. Little Gold, I'll increase my speed of walking inwards. If any demon beast or fierce beast attacks me, deal with them. Origin energy raged on Duan Lingtian's legs after he told this to the little gold mouse. Squeak squeak, when he heard the little gold mouse's reply, Duan Lingtian moved. Whirlwind. As Duan Lingtian's figure surged, he seemed to have transformed into a gale, and above him, 1,211 ancient mammoth silhouettes followed to dash out in tow. 7th level nascent soul stage. Elementary wind force. At this moment, Duan Lingtian headed into the center of the swamp of death at full speed. Whereas the fierce beasts he encountered all along the way had become stronger and stronger. However, no matter how formidable the fierce beast was, they were only fierce beasts after all, and they couldn't withstand a blow before the little gold mouse who was a 3rd level void-prying stage demon beast. Roar! Along with Duan Lingtian's spiritual force tense, in the next moment, Duan Lingtian saw an enormous fierce beast open its bloody mouth as it pounced towards him. This was a mammal fierce beast that possessed an extremely hideous appearance, and Duan Lingtian was unable to recognize it. Half-step void stage. Duan Lingtian stopped his footsteps, and his brows raised. When the fierce beast pounced over, 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared in the sky and followed it to flash towards Duan Lingtian. However, Duan Lingtian wasn't worried. Squeak squeak. The little gold mouse cried out and a sword light flashed out from the spirit sword in her hand, directly penetrating the head of this half-step void stage fierce beast, causing it to be brought along by momentum to plunge on the ground, and it was completely devoid of any signs of life. Duan Lingtian sighed emotionally in his heart when he saw this scene. A few years ago, when he still hadn't left the Crimson Sky Kingdom to head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. An existence at the half-step void stage was an existence that was difficult to surmount to him. But now, it was instead unworthy of mention. The river flows east for 30 years and west for 30 years, these words aren't wrong at all. Duan Lingtian shook his head and continued to walk into the swamp of death. Meanwhile, he'd slowed down, because he knew that he'd already entered the core area of the swamp of death. There probably were demon beasts in this area. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's guess was correct, as after he'd slowly walked for half an hour, a demon beast that was covered in scaled armor flashed out from a nearby swamp, and it seemed to have transformed into a sharp light that fiercely pierced at Duan Lingtian. In the sky, 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out towards Duan Lingtian with an imposing aura that shot into the sky like a rainbow. Squeak! The little gold mouse that stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder leapt up to transform into a gold bolt of lightning that carried along a wave of the sound of thunder as she moved to intercept this 1st level void-prying stage demon beast that was attacking Duan Lingtian. Swish! A sword howl tore through the sky and a sword light flashed past to descend onto the scaled armor on the demon beast, and it emitted a wave of ear-piercing sounds of iron colliding. This scaled armor has such strong defense. Duan Lingtian was shocked. Whereas at the instant that Duan Lingtian was surprised, the little gold mouse had already attacked with her second sword strike, and it pierced through the stomach of the demon beast, killing it. The scaled armor of this demon beast only didn't protect its stomach. The stomach was its weakest point. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse returned to Duan Lingtian's shoulder then sought credit from Duan Lingtian. Big brother Lingtian, I'm formidable, right? Even though this demon beast's strength is far inferior to me, the scaled armor on its body is extremely hard, I was actually unable to break through its scaled armor when attacking at full force. Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted when he heard this, and only now did he notice that besides the injury on the stomach, there wasn't a single mark of injury on the demon beast that was killed by Little Gold. This demon beast, Duan Lingtian squatted down and looked at the white mark that Little Gold's sword strike left behind on the demon beast's scale, and at the same time, he flashed through the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. Finally, Duan Lingtian recognized this demon beast. It's actually a crimson armadillo. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse looked at Duan Lingtian in wonder. Little Gold, this crimson armadillo is an extremely rare demon beast, give your spirit sword to me. Duan Lingtian explained to the little gold mouse and took the little gold mouse's spirit sword. Subsequently, a grade 5 weapon flame blazed on Duan Lingtian's palm and he pressed in onto the scaled armor on the surface of the crimson armadillo's body. After 15 minutes, the scaled armor showed traces of melting. After an hour, a segment of the scaled armor was burnt off by Duan Lingtian and it had transformed into a pool of liquid. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian's hands rose and fell, withdrawing a pile of weapons refinement materials from his spatial ring before melting them into liquid with the weapon flame as well. In the end, Duan Lingtian used the Crimson Armadillo's scaled armor and the pile of weapons refinement materials to successfully improve the Little Gold Mouse's grade 6 spirit sword to a grade 5 spirit sword. Try it. Duan Lingtian returned the spirit sword to the Little Gold Mouse. The little gold mouse's pair of jade green eyes lit up as she received the spirit sword and started swinging it about. Origin energy suffused onto the spirit sword. Whoosh! Instantly 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above the little gold mouse, then another 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared at the side of the existing ancient mammoth silhouettes. In other words, the grade 5 spirit sword in the little gold mouses contained the strength of 6,000 ancient mammoths. 50% amplification, not bad. Duan Lingtian nodded in satisfaction. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse's green eyes flashed brightly and she was extremely excited. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian withdrew his own violet myrtle flexible sword, then relied on the scaled armor of the crimson armadillo to advance it to the ranks of grade 5 spirit sword. After improving the violet myrtle flexible sword, the amplification was similar to the grade 5 spirit sword in the little gold mouse's hand. It was able to amplify strength by 50%. The scaled armor of this crimson armadillo is a good thing. The weapon flame on Duan Lingtian's hand raged and it quickly removed the remaining scaled armor from the crimson armadillo and put it away in his spatial ring. The scaled armor of this crimson armadillo was a special material for refining grade 5 spirit weapons. Let's go. After dealing with it, Duan Lingtian brought along the little gold mouse to continue inwards. All along the way, they encounter a few demon beasts, and without exception, they all died beneath the sword of the little gold mouse. Presently, through the amplification of the grade 5 spirit sword, the little gold mouse's strength had reached the strength of 6,000 ancient mammoths. If she were to utilize her half-step advanced lightning force, she would be able to exert the strength of 6,500 ancient mammoths. In terms of strength, her strength was comparably to a 4th-level void-prying stage demon beast that had comprehended half-step advanced force. If a 4th-level demon beast comprehended force that was inferior to the little gold mouse's half-step advanced lightning force, its strength would even be inferior to the little gold mouse. After all, ordinary demon beasts didn't possess spirit weapons. Of course, although demon beasts didn't possess spirit weapons to rely on, some demon beasts with extraordinary natural talent instead possessed an advantage that belonged to themselves. Just like the crimson armadillo. The scaled armor on its body was something that even Little Gold was unable to break open when utilizing a grade 6 spirit sword. In the end, it was because Little Gold found its weak point that Little Gold was able to kill it. Squeak squeak, Duan Lingtian walked forward all the way, and he only stopped moving when he heard the little gold mouse cry out abruptly. 470 Chapter 471, Whose Bones? Little Gold, what's up? Duan Lingtian looked at the little gold mouse on his shoulder as he asked curiously. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse raised its little head and gazed towards the distance on the right. Duan Lingtian followed the little gold mouse's gaze to look over. He saw an area coiled around by black mist, and he was utterly unable to see clearly what was there. Have you noticed something? Duan Lingtian's spiritual force extended out, yet he felt as if it was like a stone sinking into the ocean, and he didn't notice anything. Big brother Lingtian, didn't you feel it? The aura that's emitted from there is too terrifying. The little gold mouse's immature voice of a young girl entered into Duan Lingtian's ears and into contained a trace of terror mixed within. No, Duan Lingtian shook his head, then curiously walked towards that place, and his entire body merged into the mist. Duan Lingtian's vision was obstructed within the mist, and he was only able to use his spiritual force to check the path before him. However, spiritual force wasn't an eye after all. It was only able to tell Duan Lingtian if there was a swamp ahead, but was unable to point Duan Lingtian in the right direction. Big brother Lingtian, go right. Fortunately, the little gold mouse's voice sounded out, and it allowed Duan Lingtian to not have to be a blind man any longer. Under the little gold mouse's guidance, Duan Lingtian arrived beside a strange enormous pit. This was an enormous pit that was deep to the point the bottom couldn't be seen, and black mist coiled within it. Hey! Duan Lingtian yelled towards the enormous pit, and his echo only resounded back after the time of a few breaths. So deep. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. Big brother Lingtian, it's inside. The little gold mouse's voice transmission seemed to contain a trace of trembling. The aura that causes you to feel afraid is coming from within this enormous pit. Duan Lingtian looked at the little gold mouse and frowned. Little Gold, you wouldn't have sensed wrongly, right? The little gold mouse shook her head. No, it's inside. Big brother Lingtian, if you don't believe me, I'll take you down to go take a look. As soon as she finished speaking, the little gold mouse became the size of a small hill. Okay, Duan Lingtian nodded, as the little gold mouse's words had aroused his curiosity, and he really wanted to know exactly what was within the enormous pit, as it was actually able to cause fear in the fearless little gold mouse. As far as he was concerned, this was an unbelievable thing. The enormous pit was extremely huge, and it was capable of completely accommodating the little gold mouse's body after she's enlarged herself. The little gold mouse carried Duan Lingtian to slowly descend in the enormous pit. "Have we not arrived yet?" After 15 minutes, Duan Lingtian noticed that the little gold mouse was still slowly descending, and he couldn't refrain from asking. "Almost," said the little gold mouse via voice transmission. Finally, after the time for another 10+ breaths of air, the little gold mouse's speed finally slowed down. "Big brother Lingtian, look." Duan Lingtian looked downwards under the guidance of the little gold mouse. With just a glance, he'd noticed that within the dim enormous pit, there was actually a cave that could accommodate an adult on the side of the pit's wall. Accurately speaking, it was a cave passageway. In next to no time, a flower that was at the side of the entrance to the cave attracted Duan Lingtian's attention. This was a flower that was pitch black like ink, and because of its color, it almost merged into one with the wall of the enormous pit. Because of being far away from it earlier, Duan Lingtian didn't notice it. Now, along with the little gold mouse stopping, Duan Lingtian just happened to be at the same height as the entrance to the cave entrance, and he could clearly see the outline of this black flower. After searching along the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, Duan Lingtian recognized this flower. Serene epiphyllum. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted as he never expected that this was the serene epiphyllum. Although it was the first time he'd seen the serene epiphyllum, it wasn't the first time he'd heard of it. All those years ago, his mother had told him before that more than 20 years ago, it was precisely because of the serene epiphyllum that his deadbeat dad had ventured deep into the swamp of death, and there has been no news of him ever since. Now, 20 years had passed and he'd actually encountered a serene epiphyllum. It's truly as the saying goes, casually sticking a willow branch into the ground, yet the willow became a shade. Duan Lingtian emitted a bitter laugh, then he picked the serene epiphyllum. The serene epiphyllum was an exceedingly valuable medicinal material. It was priceless. The refinement of many special medicinal pills more or less required using it. Duan Lingtian observed the entrance into the cave for a while, and noticed there was nothing else before flashing to enter the cave passageway. Meanwhile, the little gold mouse shrunk once again and following him to enter the cave passageway before descending onto Duan Lingtian's shoulder. "What place is this?" Duan Lingtian walked along the cave passageway. It became darker the further in he traveled, and it soon became pitch black. Hiss! With a raise of his hand, a weapon flame raged and leapt about on his hand, illuminating the entire cave. Duan Lingtian followed along the passageway to continue on inwards, and he'd walked for an entire hour before he became slightly impatient. Exactly what damnable place is this? All along the way here, Duan Lingtian was able to sense that the terrain was ceaselessly lowering. His preliminary estimation was that he was estimated to be 1,000 meters underground. "Big brother Lingtian, that aura is getting closer and closer," the little gold mouse's voice sounded out, and it caused Duan Lingtian to heave a sigh of relief as he finally had something to look forward to. Finally, another half an hour had passed when Duan Lingtian turned past a curve and noticed a white spot of light ahead. "That's the exit," Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he quickened his pace. Eventually, the white spot of light gradually enlarged and Duan Lingtian had finally walked out of the cave passageway to enter a space that was as bright as day. Accurately speaking, this space was a space similar to a hall in a palace. The hall was resplendent and magnificent, and it was like an underground palace. On the ceiling, 9 gigantic luminous pearls were set there, and the light in the hall was exactly from them. Any one of these luminous pearls are more than double the size of the luminous pearl the Phoenix Nest City's Chong clan's patriarch gave me that day. Any one of these are extremely valuable. At the same time that Duan Lingtian gaped, his eyes lit up. Finally, Duan Lingtian moved his eyes from the 9 luminous pearls and shot it at the hall. A skeleton lay at the side of the hall, and it attracted Duan Lingtian's attention. There were clothes on the skeleton, yet it had become ruined from experiencing endless years. From the structure of the skeleton, Duan Lingtian was able to discern that it belonged to a male. Who is this? Why is he here? Curiosity emerged in Duan Lingtian's heart and he carefully sized the skeleton up. In next to no time, he noticed that the chest bone of the skeleton had actually shattered, and it was as if it was shattered by a punch from someone. Big brother Ling Tian, what's this? The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears. Only now did Duan Ling Tian notice that the little gold mouse had left his shoulder since an unknown time and had descended on the side of the skeleton. Now, she's grabbed out a command token that was suffused with dust from the waist of the skeleton. Duan Ling Tian's face went ghastly pale when he saw this command token. A clear word, Duan, was inscribed on the front of the command token. It's the command token of the Duan clan. Duan Ling Tian held up the command token, then took a deep breath before turning it over. Atop it, the word, direct, was extremely conspicuous. Duan clan direct descendant disciple. Duan Ling Tian had seen this type of command token, the Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Ru Huo, the grand elder, Duan Zhen, and the Duan clan's fourth master, Duan Ru Ming, all carried it with them. It was the command token that was uniformly adorned by direct descendant disciples of the Duan clan. Could it be? Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath as his heartbeat abruptly quickened, and his gaze descended onto the skeleton once again. Could it be that this was his deadbeat dad, Duan Ru Feng? For a time, a bitter smile appeared on the corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth. If the skeleton really was his deadbeat dad, then although it was unlikely that he would be sad, he couldn't help from feeling a slight sense of loss. After all, his mother had always firmly believed that his deadbeat dad was still alive. Squeak squeak, right at this moment, the little gold mouse cried out once again. Big brother Ling Tian, spatial ring, it's a spatial ring. Duan Ling Tian's gaze shot at the right hand of the skeleton when he heard the little gold mouse's voice transmission, and on the right hand was a dark bronze spatial ring. Duan Ling Tian removed the spatial ring and established ownership by dripping his blood on it. I hope there's something to prove the identity of this skeleton within this spatial ring, Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart, and his mood became even more perturbed. The thing he was most worried of right now was that this skeleton really was his deadbeat dad, as once it was confirmed, he didn't know how sad his mother would be. Even if it's proven that he really is that deadbeat dad of mine, I have to lock this secret away within me. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath as he said to himself. He didn't want to make his mother sad. At least, his mother held a trace of hope in her heart, and allowing this trace of hope to accompany his mother all through her lifetime would perhaps be the best choice. With a command of his thoughts, Duan Ling Tian started looking through the things within the spatial ring. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian's eyes lit up. A letter. There's actually a letter in this spatial ring, regardless of if this letter was written by someone to the owner of the spatial ring or the owner of the spatial ring had written it to someone else, it would surely be signed. A letter appeared with a raise of his hand. This was a letter that had been torn open. It ought to be a letter written by someone to the original owner of this spatial ring. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart, then opened the letter to read it. The starting of the letter was the addressing of the other person to the original owner of the spatial ring. Duan Yu. Duan Ling Tian's gaze descended onto the words, Lord Duan Yu, at the beginning of the letter, and his eyes squinted. Duan Yu, a direct descendant disciple of the Duan clan. Could it be that he's the half-step void stage martial artist from the Duan clan that had come to the swamp of death all those years ago to look for my deadbeat dad? This thought emerged in Duan Ling Tian's heart at the first possible moment. After the thought emerged, he was even more convinced. No matter if it's him or not, I can be sure that this skeleton isn't that deadbeat dad of mine. Duan Ling Tian heaved a sigh of relief and felt slightly fortunate. Although he didn't know what that deadbeat dad of his encountered all those years ago, since he hadn't seen the remains of his deadbeat dad, it also meant that there was a chance that deadbeat dad of his was still alive. Of course, it was also possible that he was swallowed by the swamp. But this was only a possibility. Little Gold, the aura you spoke of earlier that made you feel fear came from here. Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian remembered the reason he'd entered the cave passageway, and he looked at the little gold mouse as he asked. 471 Chapter 472, Unlucky, Ghost. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse hurriedly nodded, then leapt to the side of the hall and pointed towards a broken stone tablet and said via voice transmission. Big brother Ling Tian, the aura is inside this, however, that aura vanished not long after we arrived, as if it concealed itself. So strange. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but be stunned when he heard the little gold mouse's voice transmission, then he took large strides to arrive before the broken stone tablet. This stone tablet, Duan Ling Tian squatted down, wanting to lift up the stone tablet, yet he noticed that the little tablet seemed to be connected to the entire hall. However, Duan Lingtian's extended spiritual force instead told him that this broken stone tablet was separate from the hall. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, the muscles on his entire body bulged up as he grabbed onto the stone tablet with both his hands. Subsequently, the entire strength in his body exploded out. But, even then, his strength of 1011 ancient mammoths was still unable to move the stone tablet in the slightest. Exactly how heavy is this stone tablet? Duan Lingtian was astounded, then he extended his hand out to knock the stone tablet as he swiftly searched through the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, yet in the end, he was unable to find any clues relating to the materials the stone tablet was made of. In other words, even if the rebirth martial emperor was still alive, he would also be unable to recognize the materials this stone tablet was made from. According to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, even the heaviest stone on Cloud Continent was far lighter than this broken stone tablet before him. This stone tablet was only a small piece, yet it was already heavy to the extent that Duan Lingtian wasn't able to move it in the slightest. Little Gold, see if you can move this stone tablet. Duan Lingtian looked at the nearby Little Gold mouse. As far as he was concerned, Little Gold was a third-level void-prying stage demon beast, and Little Gold's strength was stronger than him as well. The Little Gold mouse swiftly ran over when she heard this, but, even when the Little Gold mouse fully exploded forth with her strength of 4.000 ancient mammoth, she was still similarly unable to move the stone tablet in the slightest. Exactly what stone tablet is this? Duan Lingtian gasped when he saw this scene. After all, the strength of one ancient mammoth was comparably to the strength of 10,000 pounds. The strength of 4,000 ancient mammoths was comparably to the strength of 40 million pounds. What sort of notion was 40 million pounds? If converted to the ton unit of weight measurement in his previous life, it was 20,000 tons. The weight of this stone tablet exceeds 20,000 tons. Duan Lingtian was completely dumbstruck as he gazed at the stone tablet before him. Squeak squeak, right at this moment, the Little Gold mouse's enraged cry sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Swish. Subsequently, he saw a sword light flash over to fiercely strike the stone tablet. It was precisely the Little Gold mouse utilizing her entire strength, her grade 5 spirit weapon, and her half-step advanced lightning force to attack the stone tablet. Bang! The sword strike that contained the strength of 6,500 ancient mammoths struck onto the stone tablet, and the terrifying force swept up all the dust on the floor of the hall. Squeak squeak, the Little Gold mouse's helpless cry sounded out as the dust settled down. Duan Lingtian looked towards the stone tablet and his eyes sprung open like saucers as he was inexplicably shocked. Exactly what materials is this stone tablet made of? A stroke strike that contained the strength of 6,500 ancient mammoths had struck it, yet it didn't leave behind a single mark. After all, the Little Gold mouse's sword strike had left behind a conspicuous white mark even on the scale armor of the crimson armadillo that possessed heaven-defying hardness. But now, the Little Gold mouse had exerted her full strength yet didn't leave behind any marks on the stone tablet. Big Brother Lingtian, this stone platform is too hard, I can't do anything. The Little Gold mouse's small head drooped, then she dejectedly stood to the side after putting away her grade 5 spirit sword. I saw. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly, then extended his hand to pat the stone tablet, and he didn't notice anything wrong with it. The entire stone tablet was icy cold and extremely strange words were engraved on it, and Duan Lingtian didn't recognize a single word. What words are these? It seems to not be the words used commonly on Cloud Continent. Under his helplessness, Duan Lingtian could only search through the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. However, according to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, even the rebirth martial emperor who'd experienced 2 lifetimes had never seen this type of words. Even the rebirth martial emperor hasn't seen these words before. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be amazed, and he was able to realize how unordinary this stone tablet was. Based on the gap on this stone tablet, it should be lacking less than half. Duan Lingtian placed his hand on the stone tablet, and his hand felt cold as if he was touching an ice cube. Finally, Duan Lingtian couldn't bear it any longer, and his spiritual force swept out to envelop this broken stone tablet as he wanted to see if he could use his spiritual force to sense the profundities of this stone tablet. Right at the instant Duan Lingtian's spiritual force touched the stone tablet, an unexpected event suddenly occurred. Duan Lingtian felt a gloomy wind assault him, then his spiritual force shook as a spiritual force that caused him to feel suffocated surged out from the stone tablet to follow along his spiritual force and swept towards his soul. A trace of despair emerged in Duan Lingtian's heart without rhyme nor reason. The strength of this spiritual force completely exceeded the scope of his understanding. Even the spiritual force of Elder Kong from Phoenix Nest City wasn't worth mentioning when compared with this spiritual force, and it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even the rebirth martial emperor at his prime might not have a spiritual force that's this strong. Instantly, many thoughts flashed past Duan Lingtian's mind. Who exactly are you? Duan Lingtian's spiritual force shook as he communicated with the strong spiritual force that had touched his spiritual force. Accurately speaking, the thing that swept towards his soul via his spiritual force ought to be an extremely formidable soul. Duan Lingtian was extremely familiar of the feeling he had now. All those years ago, when he'd just come to this world from Earth and had possessed Duan Lingtian's body, the soul of the rebirth martial emperor that was concealed deep within Duan Lingtian's soul had once given him a similar feeling. However, at this instant, he had a clear intuition. Even the soul of the rebirth martial emperor at that time seemed to be far inferior to the strength of this soul that had swept towards him. The rebirth martial emperor was an existence that stood at the peak of Cloud Continent. His soul had experienced 2 lifetimes and was even tempered to an extremely terrifying degree. During his second lifetime, it was even to the extent that not a single martial emperor stage expert was able to receive a single spiritual force attack from the rebirth martial emperor. The strength of the rebirth martial emperor's soul is imaginable from this. Could it be that I'm mistaken? This thought had only just emerged in Duan Lingtian's heart when he felt the extremely strong soul had already entered his mind. At the same time, a gloomy, loud, and clear voice entered into Duan Lingtian's soul. Kid, you can only blame yourself for being unfortunate. If it wasn't for your soul touching the Devil Seal tablet, it would be impossible for my primary soul to leave the Devil Seal tablet. I really have to thank you properly. Now, I've escaped the Devil Seal tablet. So long as I destroy your soul and occupy your body, I'll be able to go look for my secondary soul. At that time, when my primary soul returns to the side of my secondary soul, I'll be able to annihilate that stupid fellow. Ha 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 ha. Along with this arrogant and wanton voice sounding out, Duan Lingtian's soul shook intensely. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's extended spiritual force completely dispersed along with the trembling of his soul. No, Duan Lingtian's face went ghastly pale as he shouted out miserably. Once his soul destroyed, it would also mean that he would completely vanish from the world. Even if his body was still alive, it was only a shell and wasn't him any longer. But everything that was happening now wasn't something that Duan Lingtian was able to control. In Duan Lingtian's senses, the strong soul that swept towards his soul was simply even stronger than the soul of the rebirth martial emperor that day. Bang! Finally, the extremely strong soul collided with Duan Lingtian's soul. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's body shook and he felt dizzy. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian, who thought his consciousness would be destroyed, noticed to his astonishment that his shaking soul was ceaselessly stabilizing and recovering. In the end, the unwell feeling completely vanished. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian noticed that the strong soul from before seemed to have suddenly vanished without a trace. Raging thunder, yet a tiny shower. Could it be? To Duan Lingtian this scene was similarly so familiar. Could it be that he suffered a similar fate as the rebirth martial emperor at that time, suffering some sort of restraint from the law of the world because of my soul doesn't belong to this world, so he didn't succeed. Not only did he not succeed, he instead lost his own soul in the process. Duan Lingtian had a strange expression when he thought up to this point. What an unlucky ghost. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief and revealed a slightly complacent smile. So what if your soul is strong? Trying to destroy my soul is simply like seeking death. Looks like the rebirth martial emperor has a companion. Big brother Lingtian, your current appearance is extremely annoying. Right at this moment, the little gold mouse looked at him in all seriousness as she sent him a voice transmission. The smile on Duan Lingtian's face froze when he heard this, and he was slightly embarrassed. At the same time, at an extremely distant place, in an extremely luxurious and magnificent palace that was on a floating island that hung in midair. Suddenly, ha 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 ha, hey Ming, I truly never expected that you're so unfortunate, even your primary soul was destroyed by someone. A wave of unrestrained loud laughter of freedom sounded out from within the palace. Subsequently, the airflow in the sky scattered about as a tall figure abruptly appeared in the sky above the magnificent palace. This was a young man. The young man wore azure clothes, his face exceedingly handsome with a perfectly contoured outline, and he possessed a graceful bearing. His pair of sword-shaped eyebrows erect and gave off a dignified aura. His pair of calm eyes seemed to have azure-colored strong winds leaping about within, and his sharp gaze seemed to be able to penetrate everything. Presently, the young man's face was filled with extreme joy. As if he hadn't been so happy in a long time. Suddenly, the distant air roiled. Whoosh, whoosh, two figures that were exceedingly swift appeared before the young man at almost the exact same time. This was two old men. One wearing blue clothes, the other wearing red clothed. Mansion Lord. The two old men looked at the young man and were extremely humble. I'll be leaving for a period of time. During this period of time, both of you will be fully in charge of all the affairs of the Azure Cloud Mansion. The young man glanced lightly at the two old men, then shot out a command token with a raise of his hand. On the command token was azure-colored strong winds that twined together, seeming like an azure dragon. 472 Chapter 473, Devil Seal Tablet. Yes, Mansion Lord. After the red-clothed old man received the command token, he responded respectfully with the blue-clothed old man, and they didn't dare be disrespectful in the slightest. The respect they had towards the young man came from their bones, it came from the depths of their souls. Even if the young man wanted them to give up their lives, they wouldn't frown in the slightest. Only because this was their Mansion Lord. Their Mansion Lord possessed a supreme status within their hearts. All right, both of you stand down. The young man spoke indifferently, and at the instant he finished speaking, the figures of the two old men gradually shattered to vanish into thin air. Their speeds vary so swift that they only left behind two material afterimages. For a time, the young man remained in the air above the palace. It has been 20 years, during these 20 years, although my soul remained, but it was suppressed at all times. Now that Haiming's secondary soul has been obliterated along with his primary soul, I finally regained control of my own body. The young man's gaze was like a sword as he looked towards the distance, and his gaze revealed trace of sadness. Now that I think about it, it's been 23 years since I left. Unknowingly, a trace of moisture had appeared in the eyes of the young man, it was as if he'd recalled something and was extremely sad. His expression was exceedingly complicated. Sometimes it was filled with regret, sometimes it was filled with pity, and sometimes it was filled with self-blame. Finally, the young man closed his eyes, and tears wet his face. If I can choose, I'd rather choose the 23 years I lost and not this extraordinary strength. In the next moment, the young man didn't seem to have made any movements when his figure shattered. It turned out that it was only an afterimage. The swamp of death, within the depths of the enormous pit. The cave passageway within the enormous pit was utterly concealed, not to mention that existence that was like a palace at the end of the cave passageway. Presently, within the hall in the underground palace. The owner of that strong soul from before seemed to have said that was his primary soul. And he said something about a secondary soul, looks like that wasn't his complete soul. Duan Lingtian stood on the spot and muttered. Yet that incomplete soul gave me an even stronger feeling than the rebirth martial emperor all those years ago, but unfortunately, after his soul was obliterated, it didn't leave behind any memories, and this was something that was different to the rebirth martial emperor. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, then closed his eyes as he recalled the dangerous scene from before. In the end, he obtained an answer. Perhaps, the reason he was able to fuse with the lifetime worth of memories of the rebirth martial emperor was because the rebirth martial emperor's soul had been hiding within his current body for many years. Whereas that strong soul was instead an absolute outsider. I was still too greedy. This time, being able to get my life back can be considered to be not bad. Duan Lingtian opened his eyes, then sighed as he shook his head. A man whose heart wasn't content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant, and this saying was precisely speaking about his current situation. At the same time that Duan Lingtian's heart was filled shock towards that existence whose soul seemed to be ever stronger than the rebirth martial emperor, he was similarly filled with curiosity. He could imagine that the memories of such a formidable existence would surely be extremely rich. If he was able to obtain the memories of the owner of that strong soul, it would undoubtedly be an extremely great gain. Perhaps, he might even be able to obtain some things that was beyond his imagination. After all, he felt that the strength of that soul was even stronger than the rebirth martial emperor. Finally, Duan Lingtian came back to his senses, and his gaze once again descended onto the broken stone tablet. According to the strong soul from before, this stone tablet seems to be the Devil Seal tablet. What exactly is the Devil Seal tablet? Duan Lingtian raised his hand instinctively, wanting to grab the Devil Seal tablet to take a look at it. Duan Lingtian had only just stretched out his hand when a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth, as he'd just remembered that even when the little gold mouse exerted her entire strength at the third level of the void prying stage, she was still unable to shake this stone tablet in the slightest. He would probably. His thought hadn't finished emerging when it stopped abruptly. Duan Lingtian's eyes sprang wide open as he looked at the Devilseal tablet that he held in his hand, and he was completely dumbstruck. How could I possibly pick it up? Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse stood at the side, and when she saw this scene, she was obviously shocked and said via voice transmission, "Big brother Lingtian, how did you do it? You're actually able to pick up this strange stone tablet." "I don't know as well." Duan Lingtian shook his head then took a breath. "I didn't feel my strength become stronger, then there's only one possibility, it's this stone tablet itself that has become light." "The stone tablet has become light." The little gold mouse's figure flashed out to leap onto the stone tablet. Subsequently, her claws held onto the stone tablet, and she actually carried it to fly up with her. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse that carried the stone tablet to fly up was extremely excited, and she didn't forget to send a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. "Big brother Lingtian, it has really become light, however, why would it suddenly become light?" "Right, why would it suddenly become light?" Duan Lingtian looked at the little gold mouse that was carried flying by the little gold mouse, and his heart shook. Could it be that it's because of that strong soul? Because that strong soul has left it, so this stone tablet has returned back to normal. Although it was difficult to understand, Duan Lingtian could currently only think of this way to understand it. Devilseal tablet, that fellow would be some sort of monster that was sealed within the stone tablet, right? Just because my spiritual force stretched into the Devilseal tablet and opened a way out for him, so it allowed him to escape from the Devilseal tablet. When he recalled the events that occurred earlier and the words the owner of that strong soul said before he was obliterated, Duan Lingtian was able to guess some things. If it's really like this, I've really lifted a rock only to drop it on my own feet. Fortunately, my soul doesn't belong to this world and is protected by a certain type of law. Otherwise, I would have died for sure earlier. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath once more, and he felt a slight lingering fear in his heart. The scene from before was something that would be difficult for him to forget in his entire lifetime, and he didn't want to experience it for a second time. Such a matter was something that others might not encounter for their entire lifetimes, whereas I've instead encountered it twice. This luck of mine is truly heaven-defying. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly. Duan Lingtian's surging feeling gradually eased up. Then he received the mysterious Devilseal tablet from the little gold mouse and studied it for a while. After he didn't discover anything, he casually tossed it into his spatial ring. "Forget it, I'll slowly study it in the future." Although he didn't know what the Devilseal tablet was nor what use it had, since the Devilseal tablet was able to seal such a formidable soul, it ought to have its own special characteristics. Subconsciously, Duan Lingtian felt that this was a treasure, a rare treasure. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse searched the hall carefully for a moment, and when they didn't discover anything, they intended to leave. Before they left, Duan Lingtian asked the little gold mouse to take off the 9 luminous pearls that were the only valuable thing in the hall. When Duan Lingtian bluntly put away all the 9 luminous pearls into his spatial ring, the daylight was no more, and the entire hall fell into boundless darkness, extreme darkness. The darkness didn't last for long as a strand of raging azure-colored flame lit up on Duan Lingtian's palm. Exactly what happened all those years ago. This senior Duan Yu was obviously killed by someone shattering his ribcage. Duan Lingtian had a complicated gaze as he glanced at Duan Yu's bones. I wonder if that deadbeat dad of mine is still alive. If he's still alive, then where would he have gone? Duan Lingtian didn't hold any hope within his heart. Duan Yu seemed to be that half-step void stage ancestor of the Duan clan. Even a half-step void stage expert had died within the swamp of death. Whereas that deadbeat dad of his was only a martial artist that had just broken through to the nascent soul stage all those years ago. Leaving you here can be considered as laying you to rest. Duan Lingtian withdrew his gaze from the skeleton, then left the hall with the little gold mouse. They would return to where they came from. When they returned, Duan Lingtian was already familiar with the cave passageway, so he sped up his footsteps and it wasn't even half an hour when he'd arrived at the exit. Little gold, let's go back. Duan Lingtian sat on the back of the little gold mouse that had enlarged herself, then they left the enormous pit and returned to the ground level of the swamp of death. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian continued searching deeper into the swamp of death. In the end, he didn't find any clues relating to his father. After spending over 10 days, Duan Lingtian had practically turned the swamp of death inside out, yet he still didn't discover anything. Perhaps this is the best outcome. Duan Lingtian left the swamp of death with the little gold mouse. Presently, both of them were slightly exhausted. During these 10+ days of time, besides being unable to eat peacefully, they still had to constantly be on guard against the sneak attacks from the surrounding demon beasts. Big brother Lingtian, let's go to that nearby city and have a meal. The little gold mouse suggested outside the swamp of death, and her jade green eyes were filled with yearning. You little fellow, your mouth is itching again. As it happens, I want to find an inn to have a proper bath as well, let's go. Duan Lingtian sat onto the soft back of the little gold mouse, then let the little gold mouse carry him and fly off. Not long after, they'd arrived outside that city. The Fair Sun County city. Duan Lingtian brought along the little gold mouse that had shrunk to walk into the county city with large strides. This Fair Sun County city is about the same as the Swallow Mountain County's city. After walking into the city, Duan Lingtian brought the little gold mouse along to merge into the unending stream of pedestrians and carriages, then he casually sized up the bustling Fair Sun County city. A county city was larger than an ordinary small city. But compared to the imperial city, it was instead greatly inferior. Duan Lingtian found an inn nearby the bustling trade market at the center of the city, then took a bath and changed his clothes before heading to a nearby restaurant with the little gold mouse. Duan Lingtian sat at a table that was by the window, and after he picked a few dishes, he looked out towards the bustling stream of people on the streets outside. It's truly bustling. Suddenly, seeming to have noticed something, Duan Lingtian looked towards the door of the restaurant. Presently, a man and a woman were walking in shoulder to shoulder. The young man was around the age of 30, with an arrogant expression as if he looked down on everyone. Whereas the person that attracted Duan Lingtian's attention now wasn't this young man, but was instead the other young woman. 473 Chapter 474, Mo 2. Tong Li. Duan Lingtian recognized the young woman that was around the age of 25 with a single glance. Tong Li, the young woman he'd taught a lesson when he'd just arrived at the imperial city all those years ago. Only later on did he know that this Tong Li was actually the cousin sister of the imperial family's fifth prince. At that time, Tong Li had tried to make things difficult for him on many occasions, and even the fifth prince had wanted to take his life many times. Unfortunately for them, they didn't succeed from the beginning until the end. In the end, no matter if it was Tong Li or the fifth prince, both of them came to no good end. Tong Li's cultivation was crippled by him. As for the fifth prince, he instead died within the imperial palace's throne room. No wonder I felt the Fair Sun County was slightly familiar since the beginning. Isn't this Tong Li the daughter of the Fair Sun County's governor? Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding, and he couldn't help but recall the scenes that occurred in the restaurant in the outer city of the imperial city all those years ago. At that time, after he'd taught Tong Li a lesson, he'd heard someone mention Tong Li's identity right away. The two of us really have fate between us. Unknowingly, a strange smile had appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth. Right at this moment, Tong Li, who'd just walked into the restaurant, noticed that a burning gaze was staring at her, and it caused her to frown as her face sank. She was the daughter of the Fair Sun County's governor. Who dared be so audacious? Tong Li's gaze that was sharp as a sword fiercely pierced towards the owner of the burning gaze. However, when Tong Li's gaze encountered the person, it was as if she'd seen a ghost, and her face went ghastly pale as her body started trembling intensely. It's him, the scenes from before seemed as if they were before her eyes, yet no hatred was able to emerge from Tong Li's heart, and all that emerged was terror. The current status and identity of the person before her wasn't something that she could shake. Even her biggest backer, her cousin brother the fifth prince, had allegedly been overthrown by this person a few years ago. Tong Li, long time no see. When he saw an acquaintance, Duan Lingtian would naturally greet the acquaintance, and he directly sent a voice transmission into Tong Li's ears. Tong Li seemed as if she was struck by lightning when she heard Duan Lingtian's voice transmission, and her expression was ghastly pale. Li, what's wrong? Right at this moment, the young man who walked shoulder to shoulder with Tong Li noticed something was wrong with Tong Li. He followed Tong Li's gaze to look over, and his gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian as well. His face couldn't help but sink. Li, do you know him? Do you want me to help you teach him a lesson? He was able to discern the terror Tong Li revealed towards the young man in the distance, and he had the intention of seeking the limelight in front of Tong Li. I'm not feeling well, I want to return to the county governor's estate. Tong Li came back to her senses when she heard the young man's words, and her expression was a mix of livid and ashen. Teach him a lesson. There probably isn't a single person in Crimson Sky Kingdom that dares say they want to teach this person a lesson. As soon as she finished speaking, Tong Li turned around and left. Li, wait for me. The eyes of the young man that emitted cold lights glanced at Duan Lingtian, then he turned towards the direction Tong Li left to chase after her. Tong Li's departure had exceeded Duan Lingtian's expectations. Am I that scary? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then withdrew his gaze. Meanwhile, the dishes he'd ordered had arrived and he started to eat. Half an hour later, Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse finished eating their fill. Something worthy of mention was that the little gold mouse had actually sneakily drank wine and had even completely drunk an entire jug of wine, and she staggered as she stood on the table, as if she was training in drunken boxing. Finally, the force of the wine hit the little gold mouse, and she fell straight down, knocked out. This little fellow actually didn't use origin energy to prevent herself from getting drunk. Duan Lingtian had a strange expression when he saw this scene. How could Duan Lingtian know that this was the first time the little gold mouse had drank wine, and she forgot everything as the alcohol hit her, so how could she have thought of using origin energy to prevent herself from getting drunk? Looks like we have to stay in the Fair Sun County city for a night, this little fellow won't wake up for some time. Duan Lingtian shook his head helplessly, then withdrew some silver to pay the bill. After he paid the bill, Duan Lingtian intended to leave. Right at this moment, a wave of clamorous noise sounded out from outside the restaurant. Subsequently, 5 robust middle-aged men walked angrily into the restaurant under the lead of a young man. The movements of the 6 of them were extremely loud, and for a time, it drew the gazes of most of the customers in the restaurant. It's the Mo clan's eldest young master. The Mo clan's eldest young master is about to marry the daughter of the county governor, Miss Tong Li. There's still someone who dares offend the Mo clan's eldest young master within the Fair Sun County city. Exactly who is so bold? The entire restaurant bustled. Young Master Mo Tu, you, the manager of the restaurant, moved to greet the young man, and he looked at the young man with a perturbed expression. HMPH. However, the young man disregarded the restaurant's manager, and instead looked towards a young man in the distance that was intending to leave, and he shouted out explosively. It's him. Instantly, the 5 robust middle-aged men behind him seemed to have transformed into 5 fierce tigers that rushed forward to surround the young man. Duan Lingtian had recognized the young man early on when the young man had appeared while bringing a few people along. Wasn't this young man that person that was together with Tong Li earlier? Mo Tu, Mo clan's eldest young master. Duan Lingtian's brows knit as he'd heard the discussions of the crowd of customers earlier. For a time, his gaze became slightly strange as he thought in his heart. I truly never imagined that there's someone that dares marry Tong Li. I presume that the Mo clan is probably a clan in the Fair Sun County city. At this instant, Duan Lingtian guessed many things. Duan Lingtian had a calm expression when surrounded by the 5 robust middle-aged men, and it was as if his expression wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed before him. Mo clan's eldest young master. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently. What? Tong Li didn't introduce me to you. How could Duan Lingtian know that after Tong Li saw him earlier, she was already trembling with fear? How would she possess the mood to explain so much to her fiancé? Perhaps, Tong Li, who'd returned to the county governor's estate now, had entirely never imagined that her fiancé would bring his subordinates along to look for trouble with Duan Lingtian. I don't care who you are, or what connection you have with Tong Li, but since you've made her unhappy, then I'll teach you a lesson. Mo Tu's face revealed a cold and indifferent smile, as if he'd controlled everything before him within the palms of his hand. Teach me a lesson? Duan Lingtian was stunned first, then he laughed. Are you sure you want to teach me a lesson? Don't blame me for not warning you. Once you do some things, you have to pay the price for it. If your subordinates dare attack me today, then I'll be bound to go stay at your Mo clan for a few days. Duan Lingtian's words entered into the ears of the crowd of customers in the restaurant, and it seemed to give rise to a tempestuous storm. This young man is so arrogant. He actually dares threaten the Mo clan's eldest young master when facing the Mo clan's eldest young master and 5 generals of the Mo clan. This young man is either an idiot or possesses an extraordinary background. No matter how I look at him, this young man doesn't seem like an idiot. Everyone in the restaurant discussed animatedly. Mo Tu's face sank, as Duan Lingtian's words had similarly exceeded his expectations. Even though the 5 Mo clan generals had surrounded Duan Lingtian now, they didn't dare act rashly as they were obviously waiting for Mo Tu's instructions. Who are you? Finally, Mo Tu stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian as he spoke slowly. As far as he was concerned, this young man was either being deliberately mystifying, or the young man had an extraordinary identity. If it was the latter, then he really had to worry slightly. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh when he heard Mo Tu, as he knew then Mo Tu felt fear towards him. Duan Lingtian didn't answer Mo Tu, and he couldn't be bothered to answer Mo Tu, and he grabbed the little gold mouse before walking out of the restaurant with large strides. The 5 Mo clan generals watched helplessly as Duan Lingtian left and didn't dare stop him. After all, their young master hadn't spoken. Damn it, Mo Tu's expression was exceedingly unsightly. When had he ever been disregarded by someone like this? He gritted his teeth when he saw Duan Lingtian was about to walk out of the restaurant, then shouted in rage. Grab him, beat him to death. This enraged shout of his was obviously directed towards the 5 Mo clan generals he'd brought over. Duan Lingtian's actions of disregarding him had caused the accumulated rage in his heart to completely erupt. At this moment, he'd completely lost all reason. Simply speaking, his head was overwhelmed with rage. As soon as Mo Tu gave the order, the 5 robust generals of the Mo clan had gazes that went cold, then they flashed towards Duan Lingtian at the same time. In the sky, ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form before dashing out. The cultivation of these Mo clan generals was completely displayed. The weakest was at the 5th level of the origin core stage, the strongest was at the 7th level of the origin core stage. Duan Lingtian had just walked through the entrance and left the restaurant when he heard the 5 waves of clamorous and disorderly howls of the wind behind him. Duan Lingtian slowly turned around. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a faint smile when facing the 5 Mo clan generals that flashed towards him. Finally, Duan Lingtian made his move. He entered the restaurant before the 5 Mo clan generals had rushed out of the restaurant. Whirlwind. Instantly, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a gale, and everywhere the gale passed, it gave rise to violent winds that swept through the entire restaurant. For a time, everywhere Duan Lingtian's passed, the tables and chairs within the restaurant swirled out flying, smashing towards every direction. Everyone in the restaurant, including the restaurant's manager and the Mo clan's manager, were swept by this violent wind. It caused a wave of piercing pain in their eyes and they instinctively closed their eyes. Whereas right at the instant they closed their eyes. Bang, 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 bang. 5 loud band practically sounded out at the exact same instant, and if one didn't listen carefully, one would be unable to discern the 5 bangs from each other. When the crowd of people opened their eyes and saw the scene before them, they were completely dumbstruck. The 5 Mo clan generals lay on the floor, cold sweat flowing profusely as they cried loudly and rolled on the ground. Their pained expressions caused the people present to feel a chill run down their spines. This young man is too terrifying. 5 origin core stage martial artists, they were all heavily injured by him in only an instant. Unbelievable. This young man's age looks to be 22 or 23 at most. It's difficult to imagine that he actually possesses such a formidable strength. It's extremely likely that his cultivation has already stepped into the nascent soul stage. An uproar broke out within the restaurant. As Duan Lingtian stood there, he was able to notice the numerous reverent gazes that had converged onto him from the surroundings. 474 Chapter 475, It's easier to summon an evil spirit than allay it. Duan Lingtian's gaze contained slight mischief mixed within as it slowly shot onto the dumbstruck Mo Tu. At this moment, Mo Tu had an expression of astonishment, and he hadn't recovered from his shock up to now. Never had he imagined that this young man actually possessed such a terrifying strength, heavily injuring and knocking down all the 5 clan generals he brought with him in an instant. You, who exactly are you? At this moment, if Mo Tu still didn't know that he'd bitten off more than he could chew, then he'd really have lived in vain for all these years. Mo Tu's heart was filled with regret, and he hated himself for being overwhelmed by anger earlier. Lead the way. Duan Lingtian raised his hand, and 5 grade 7 gold injury pills shot into the hands of those 5 Mo clan generals. The 5 Mo clan generals were deeply grateful as they consumed it. Lead the way. Mo Tu was stunned, and only now did he recall Duan Lingtian's words from before, and his face went pale. However, even if he was unwilling, he had no choice. Duan Lingtian's strength was far from something he and the people he brought could go against. In the entire Fair Sun County, the Mo clan could be considered a large clan as well, and its might and status in Fair Sun County was only inferior to the governor's estate. However, the atmosphere in the Mo clan today was exceptionally oppressive. Within the Mo clan audience hall, the seat at the head that originally belonged to the Mo clan's patriarch was seized by a violet-clothed young man. Below him, all the Mo clan higher-ups including the Mo clan's patriarch were gathered together. But at this moment, their hearts were filled with nervousness. A young man around the age of 23 had swept through 5 of their Mo clan's generals who possessed outstanding strength, and the young man was suspected to have stepped into the nascent soul stage. They knew clearly in their hearts what a 23-year-old nascent soul stage martial artist meant. In their Crimson Sky Kingdom, it was probably difficult for even the imperial family and the 3 great clans of the imperial city to produce such a peerless genius. In other words, this young man is very likely to not be a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, and it was even possible that he was from those formidable imperial kingdoms, empires, or even dynasties. Not to mention their Mo clan, even the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family might not dare offend such a person. Unfilial son, why haven't you knelt? Suddenly, the Mo clan's patriarch kicked his own son, Mo Tu, to the ground as he shouted out coldly. Mo Tu didn't dare hesitate, and he knelt on the floor as his body shivered. Now he'd realized the seriousness of the matter as well. Young master, how should I address you? The Mo clan's patriarch looked at Duan Lingtian as he asked with a perturbed expression. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently. Duan Lingtian. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the Mo clan's patriarch instantly went ghastly pale. The expressions of the remaining group of Mo clan higher-ups went pale as well. Bang! Mo Tu's body went limp when he heard Duan Lingtian's name, and he collapsed on the floor, only to struggle up and kneel once more after a short while. Duan Lingtian, the Duan clan's direct descendant disciple. The commander of the embroidered uniform guard. The person the emperor trusts the most. The nephew of the divine might marquis. As a great clan of the Fair Sun County, how could the Mo clan have not heard about the #1 genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, Duan Lingtian, who gave rise to much discussion a few years ago? However, never had they imagined that the Duan Lingtian that had supposedly left the Crimson Sky Kingdom had actually returned. Not only had he returned, he'd even come to their Fair Sun County city. Furthermore, a member of their Mo clan had actually acted against Duan Lingtian. For a time, the gazes of all the Mo clan higher-ups descended onto Mo Tu, and their gazes were filled with rage. Slap, 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 comma. The Mo clan's patriarch took a stride forward, then raised his hand, striking Mo Tu with both hands, and directly slapping Mo Tu to the point Mo Tu's face was completely swollen. Commander Duan, Mo Hong didn't teach his well. I hope that Commander Duan can pardon my offense. Subsequently, the Mo clan's patriarch, Mo Hong, bowed in apology to Duan Lingtian, and he had a perturbed and humble expression. Please pardon the offense, Commander Duan. All the Mo clan higher-ups bowed in apology, and they hated Mo Tu in their hearts to the utmost degree. Although Duan Lingtian wasn't someone from the great powers of those imperial kingdoms, empires, or dynasties, but to them, Duan Lingtian was far more terrifying than the members of those powers that came from those imperial kingdoms, empires, and dynasties. If it was someone who came from those places, the powers behind them wouldn't go to the extent of lowering their own status and making a fuss about it with their Mo clan. But Duan Lingtian was an existence that could be called a malefic existence in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. They could imagine that once the incident from today spread out, Duan Lingtian wouldn't even need to say anything, and there would be a group of powers that would make a move domineeringly to curry favor with Duan Lingtian by annihilating their Mo clan. Moreover, Duan Lingtian had obviously broken through to the nascent soul stage now. They'd heard of Duan Lingtian leaving the Crimson Sky Kingdom a few years ago and heading to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom intending to join a sect. As far as they were concerned, it was surely because Duan Lingtian obtained the cultivation resources of those formidable sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that he was able to attain such great improvement, breaking through to the nascent soul stage at such a young age. With Duan Lingtian's natural talent, he'd surely be able to receive high regard from the sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. In the future, it wouldn't be difficult for him to become a great figure in the sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. They could imagine that the current Duan Lingtian was sufficient to make any power in Crimson Sky Kingdom intentionally curry favor with him. Duan Lingtian, He's actually Duan Ling Tian. I should have thought of it since the beginning, I should have thought of it since the beginning. In the Crimson Sky Kingdom, probably only Duan Ling Tian is able to scare Li to the point she would flee in panic. Mo Tu's body shivered as he knelt on the floor. Patriarch Mo, you jest. I only came to your Mo clan this time because I want to disturb you for a few days, I have no other choice, I've been poor lately and can't even afford to stay in an inn. Duan Ling Tian sat on the seat at the head, his left hand holding up the little gold mouse that was knocked out from the wine, his right hand lightly stroking the little gold mouse's smooth back, as he pretended to sigh. The Mo clan higher-ups were all dumbstruck for a moment before reacting to what Duan Ling Tian meant. Commander Duan, this is 1 million gold, just take it as our Mo clan's apology, please accept it. The Mo clan's patriarch, Mo Hong, didn't say a single word before directly withdrawing a large pile of gold from his spatial ring, then he passed it to Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian received the gold without the slightest modesty, then casually tossed it into his spatial ring. The Mo clan higher-ups heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. As far as they were concerned, since Duan Ling Tian took the money, then he ought to not make a fuss about this matter. Unexpectedly, I'll take this 1 million gold as the compensation for the fright this young Master Mo caused me. Duan Ling Tian looked at the Mo clan higher-ups as he spoke indifferently. The Mo clan higher-ups that thought they could send off Duan Ling Tian just like that were completely dumbstruck. 1 million gold is only the compensation for fright. Mo Tu, who knelt on the ground, felt his vision go black and he nearly fainted. His heart was filled with grievance. Exactly who frightened who? Of course, he didn't dare say anything, and he could only helplessly say it in his heart. The Mo clan's higher-ups reacted to Duan Ling Tian's words, and they once again stared angrily at Mo Tu with tacit understanding. As far as they were concerned, if it wasn't for Mo Tu, would their Mo clan have invited such a great lord here? It's easier to summon an evil spirit than allay it. Today, they could be considered to have completely understood the meaning of these words. Commander Duan, please accept this. Mo Hong gave over another 1 million gold, and his heart was bleeding. 2 million gold was undoubtedly an enormous figure to the Mo clan. Now, he truly wished for nothing more than to slap his son to death. This prodigal son of his has wasted 2 million gold for the Mo clan in such a short amount of time. Duan Ling Tian received the gold and nodded in satisfaction. Patriarch Mo is frank as expected. Since Patriarch Mo is so frank, then I won't make it difficult for Patriarch Mo any longer. Duan Ling Tian's words caused Mo Hong and the Mo clan higher-ups to heave a sigh of relief. We're finally going to send off this malefic existence. However, in the next moment, their hearts were suspended up once more when they heard Duan Ling Tian's following words. I'll take this 1 million gold as the money for the grade 7 gold injury pills I gave your Mo clan generals. Patriarch Mo, you don't mind, right? Duan Ling Tian put away the stack of gold once again, then he looked at Mo Hong and asked with a calm tone. I don't mind, I don't mind. Mo Hong didn't dare hesitate and hurriedly responded. But he'd already broken out with curses in his heart since long ago. 5 grade 7 gold injury pill or 1 million gold. This was simply even unscrupulous than an unscrupulous merchant. Since it's like this, since Patriarch Mo has been so cooperative, your Mo clan will compensate me with another 1 million gold as the cost for making me fight. How about it? All of you know as well that when a nascent soul stage martial artist fights, there's still a slight amount of origin energy that needs to be used up. A smile bloomed on Duan Ling Tian's face. Patriarch Mo, am I right? At this moment, when Duan Ling Tian's smile entered into the eyes of Mo Hong and the Mo clan higher-ups, it was no different from the smile of a devil. He only fought for a moment and even bashed our people, yet he wants a compensation fee for fighting. The mental line of defense that was already broken of Mo Tu, who knelt there while suffering torment, had completely collapsed. Bang! In the next moment, Mo Tu's vision went black, then he was directly angered to the point he fainted. But no one pitied him, and this included his father. 3 million gold being gifted out like this was undoubtedly a great loss to the Mo clan. It was because that their Mo clan had relied on their relationship with the county governor's estate and monopolized many businesses in the Fair Sun County. Otherwise, even if they surrendered all the resources in their clan, they wouldn't be able to produce so much money. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but secretly sigh when he received 1 million gold once again. He never imagined that the Mo clan, a mere clan of a county city, was actually able to produce so much money. At the beginning, he only planned to ask for a few 100,000 gold from the Mo clan. Unexpectedly, then Mo clan's patriarch, Mo Hong, directly produced 1,000,000 gold, and it caused him to feel that it would be rude if he didn't take more. It could be imagined that if Mo Hong knew the thoughts in Duan Lingtian's heart, he would probably be angered to the point he spat blood on the spot. Patriarch Mo, your Mo clan is truly generous. If I'm free in the future, I'll surely come here often. When Duan Lingtian left, he smiled as he spoke to Mo Hong. However, these words of his instead caused the faces of Mo Hong and all the Mo clan higher-ups to go pale. This malefic existence still wants to come often. Haha, I'm joking. Duan Lingtian laughed when he saw the expressions of the Mo clan higher-ups, then he brought along the little gold mouse and left directly. The gains this time were not bad. 475 Chapter 476, Whereabouts Exposed. After Duan Lingtian left the Mo clan estate with the little gold mouse, he left the fair Sun County city and returned to the imperial city. To him, the incident at the Mo clan was only a farce. 3,000,000 gold was nothing to him who possessed a few tens of millions of gold. Since that Mo clan's eldest young master offended him, then the Mo clan's young master could only consider himself as unfortunate. After returning to the imperial city, Duan Lingtian didn't return home, but instead went to the Duan clan, as there were some unanswered questions in his heart. Duan Lingtian went to look for the patriarch, Duan Ruhuo, after he arrived at the Duan clan estate. Patriarch, I heard from Uncle Ni that after my father went missing the Swamp of Death, the Duan clan had once sent out an expert to enter the Swamp of Death and look for him. May I know what that expert was called? Duan Lingtian went straight to the point and asked. Although he didn't know why Duan Lingtian would suddenly be interested towards this, but Duan Ruhuo still said, that expert is an ancestor of our Duan clan, an existence at the half-step void stage. His name was Duan Yu. Duan Yu. Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted unnoticeably. Looks like his guess wasn't wrong. The skeleton he found in the underground palace's hall within the enormous pit in the Swamp of Death was really that expert of the Duan clan from all those years ago. The letter within the spatial ring of that skeleton was sufficient to show his identity. Little Tian, why are you suddenly asking this? Duan Ruhuo asked curiously. Just asking. Duan Lingtian smiled but didn't speak the truth. It wasn't that he wanted to conceal it, but was instead because he didn't want to bother that senior. After all, that senior had already passed away for a long time. He'd just let that senior peacefully slumber eternally within that underground palace. After finding out about what he wanted to know, the objective of Duan Lingtian's trip could be said to be complete and perfect, and he directly bid his farewell to Duan Ruhuo and left. After leaving the Duan clan estate, Duan Lingtian made a trip to Paladin Academy, and he met the teacher of the Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind department, Sima Chongfeng, who was also the dean of Paladin Academy. Little fellow, you've returned for so long before thinking of visiting me. Sima Chongfeng couldn't refrain from deriding the moment they met. Duan Lingtian smiled embarrassedly. I encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation lately and was busy cultivating, so, hee. Alright, I was just joking. I heard that 1 month ago, you'd only just returned when you made the members of the Sun Ascent Kingdom be forced to surrender and flee. Moreover, you used an extremely strange ability. Sima Chongfeng glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. Besides that, the junior brother you brought along was actually a first-level nascent soul stage martial artist. I'm extremely curious, as his senior brother, what level has your cultivation attained? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled when he saw Sima Chongfeng look over with a burning gaze, then he took a step forward and origin energy surged on his body. Whoosh! In the next moment, 1,000 lifelike ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form in the sky above Duan Lingtian, and they accumulated force while waiting to be deployed. 7th level nascent soul stage. Sima Chongfeng exclaimed in shock and he had an astonished expression. Even though he was prepared since long ago and had guessed that Duan Lingtian's current strength ought to be stronger than his junior brother, Sima Chongfeng had never imagined that Duan Lingtian had actually broken through to the 7th level of the nascent soul stage. A 23-year-old 7th level nascent soul stage martial artist, what sort of notion was this? Even if it's throughout the entire Darkin dynasty, I'm afraid a 23-year-old 7th level nascent soul stage martial artist is extremely rare, Sima Chongfeng thought to himself. When Sima Chongfeng was astonished, Duan Lingtian was also using his spiritual force to size Sima Chongfeng up. After not seeing each other for a few years, this teacher of his had already broken through to the 4th level of the void prying stage, and it was shocking. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian chatted casually with Sima Chongfeng for some time before bidding his farewells and leaving. When he left, he took the opportunity to see the vice dean, Zhang Shang. Zhang Shang had helped him a great deal all those years ago, and he'd always remembered it in his heart. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, branch sect of the Azure Forest Tri-sect, the prior location of the Snow Moon sect. The Snow Moon sect was once one of the 5 great sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Whereas now, along with the successive annihilation of the Mountain Split sect and the 7-Star Sword sect, only 3 of the 5 great sects remained, and they'd combined together. The Snow Moon sect had completely vanished within the river of time. Whoosh! A graceful figure seemed like an exceedingly swift bolt of lightning as it flashed through the gate to the sect, causing the disciples that were guarding the gates to be muddled. "Isn't that senior sister Lu Yu?" One of them recognized who the owner of the graceful figure was. The personal disciple of one of the 3 great sect leaders of the Azure Forest Tri-sect, sect leader Shui Rui. Shui Rui was also the former sect leader of the Snow Moon sect. Senior sister Lu Yu is in such a rush, looks like she's encountered an urgent matter. Another person couldn't help but guess. As the original location of the Snow Moon sect, it was covered in white snow all year long, as if it was wrapped in a layer of beautiful silver clothes. "Master!" An urgent voice broke the silence in the depths of the snowy mountains. A young woman around the age of 30 stood before a palace that was enveloped in white snow, and when she spoke, the air she breathed condensed into ice that fell down to the ground. "Enter!" A voice sounded out from within the palace. The woman walked into the audience hall of the palace, then looked at the nearby middle-aged man and bowed respectfully. "Master!" The middle-aged man wore a silk headdress and held a feather fan in his hand, and he possessed a graceful and extraordinary bearing. "You, why are you in such a rush?" The middle-aged man that was dressed like a scholar, the former sect leader of Snow Moon sect, Shui Rui, had a bewildered expression as he looked at his own personal disciple. "Master, I have news of Duan Lingtian." Lu Yu's face flushed rosy as she spoke excitedly. "What?" Shui Rui's pupils constricted when he heard this. "Where is he now?" As Shui Rui finished speaking, his tone contained slight icy coldness. Since the battle at the 7-Star Sword sect that Duan Lingtian escaped, their Azure Forest Tri-sect had racked their brains to search for Duan Lingtian's tracks, yet they came back empty-handed. Duan Lingtian, the monstrous genius of the 7-Star Sword sect who defeated Zither young master who was the 3rd amongst the 5 great young masters at a mere age of 23. They could imagine that once Duan Lingtian matured in the future, he would surely become a great calamity for their Azure Forest Tri-sect. So, no matter what, they had to drag him out and pull the weed out by the roots before he could grow. Otherwise, the Azure Forest Tri-sect would never have a day of peace. However, during this period of time, although there was no lack of expending strength to search for Duan Lingtian's tracks, they'd never found any clues that were related to Duan Lingtian all along. This caused them to be extremely impatient. Whereas now, there's finally news about that Duan Lingtian. "Master, Duan Lingtian is in the imperial city of a small kingdom that's subordinate to our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom now, the Crimson Sky Kingdom," Lu Yu said excitedly. After all, since the battle at the 7-Star Sword sect, the Azure Forest Tri-sect's 3 great sect leaders had jointly declared. No matter who it was, so long as an Azure Forest Tri-sect disciple found the tracks of Duan Lingtian, then once Duan Lingtian was killed, the disciple would be able to obtain a grade 5 spirit weapon. In the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, a grade give spirit weapon had always been something that only the leaders of the few great powers that stood at the peak of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were able to possess. The level of its preciousness could be imagined. Whereas for the sake of finding Duan Lingtian's tracks, the reward they offered was precisely the 2 grade 5 spirit weapons from the 7-Star Sword sect and Mountain Split sect that had been annihilated. Once Duan Lingtian was killed, then the person who provided Duan Lingtian's tracks could choose any one of the 2 grade 5 spirit weapons. At this moment, Lu Yu seemed to have seen the grade give spirit weapon waving its hand at her. Crimson Sky Kingdom. Shui Rui was stunned first, then she came to a sudden understanding. No wonder we mobilized the disciples of the entire Azure Forest Tri-sect, yet were unable to find any clues relating to that Duan Lingtian. So it turns out that he ran to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Is the information accurate? Shui Rui had a serious expression as he asked Lu Yu. "Don't worry, Master, the information is surely accurate. For the sake of confirmation, I personally made a trip to Crimson Sky Kingdom, perhaps you still don't know." Master, that Duan Ling Tian rose to fame in that Crimson Sky Kingdom a few years ago, and he's even publicly acknowledged as the #1 genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Lu Yu spoke slowly. According to the information I found out myself, Yuan Ling Tian had once appeared in the Imperial Palace of the Crimson Sky Kingdom 2 months ago. Moreover, he has many relatives and friends in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. As she spoke up to here, Lu Yu stopped then continued. If the need arises, we are completely able to use those people to force Duan Ling Tian to appear. You, very good, you didn't disappoint Master. Shui Ru revealed a gratified smile. I'll go look for Sect Leader Long and Sect Leader Lu at once, and I'll tell them of this good news. Once Duan Ling Tian is killed, you'll obtain a great gift spirit weapon. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Ru stepped onto the air and directly left, only leaving behind Lu Yu, who stood on the spot with an excited expression. Crimson Sky Kingdom, Imperial City. Unknowingly, I've already returned for 2 months. Within the spacious courtyard house's rear courtyard, Duan Ling Tian sat in a pergola as he teased the little gold mouse that was on the table. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse looked at Duan Ling Tian and cried out before saying via voice transmission, Big brother Ling Tian, do you miss big sister Kair and big sister Li Fei? Duan Ling Tian nodded. Kair and little Fei haven't returned yet, I wonder where they've gone. Before the little gold mouse could respond, young master, a voice entered into the rear courtyard. Duan Ling Tian discerned that this was the voice of Jing Ru. Jing Ru, what happened? Duan Ling Tian brought along the little gold mouse and left the rear courtyard before coming to the front courtyard. Young master, there's someone from the Duan clan outside looking for you, Jing Ru said to Duan Ling Tian. Someone from the Duan clan. Duan Ling Tian walked out of his house courtyard and noticed that a carriage was already waiting there. Little Tian. In next to no time, the door curtain of the carriage was lifted open and a middle-aged man stuck his head out. I'll take you to go see someone. Duan Ling Tian recognized this person. It was the Duan clan's 4th master, Duan Ru Hong. Duan Ling Tian ascended the carriage with wonder in his heart. Who? You'll know once you arrive at the clan. Duan Ru Hong kept Duan Ling Tian guessing. Duan Ling Tian carried the wonder in his heart and arrived at the Duan clan estate with Duan Ru Hong, then headed to the Duan clan's audience hall. Before he could enter the audience hall, Duan Ling Tian heard a voice that sounded out from inside. Third brother, all this isn't your fault. Besides that, your son is extremely promising. Now that you've returned, you can properly enjoy the happiness of leisure. Duan Ling Tian was able to discern that this was the voice of the patriarch, Duan Ru Huo. Third brother. Could it be? 476 Chapter 477, Duan Ru Feng. Duan Ling Tian's breathing became hurried when he heard what the patriarch, Duan Ru Huo, had said. In the entire world, there seemed to be only a single person that was able to be called third brother by Duan Ru Huo. Duan Ru Feng, in other words, that deadbeat dad of his. Not to mention he was a person who'd crossed over from the earth and didn't have any feelings to the deadbeat dad he'd never met. Even if it was the Duan Ling Tian from before, he didn't have any memories of that deadbeat dad of his. To Duan Ling Tian, his father was too far away, too unreal. However, a person that went missing for an entire 23 years had appeared suddenly, and it still caused Duan Ling Tian to be shocked and feel disbelief. Fourth uncle, is it really my father? Duan Ling Tian looked at Duan Ru Hong, and he couldn't help but ask. He felt unprecedentedly perturbed. Duan Ru Hong smiled lightly. Wouldn't you know if he's your father or not by going in and taking a look? Only until Duan Ling Tian walked into the audience hall did he know what Duan Ru Hong's words meant. Within the audience hall, a young man with a tall figure stood facing the Duan clan's patriarch, Duan Ru Huo. Presently, when they heard the sound of footsteps, the two of them turned towards the footsteps at almost the exact same time. Duan Ling Tian's gaze descended completely on the young man. The young man wore azure clothes, with hair that was casually scattered on his shoulders, and his face was handsome and exceedingly clean. The young man had sword-shaped brows and starry eyes, a firm face that was distinct and angular, and it seemed as if it was cut out with a blade. Most surprising to Duan Ling Tian was the young man's appearance was actually 60% or 70% similar to him. At the same time, when facing this young man, a type of feeling of being connected by blood actually arose within his heart without reason nor rhyme. In this instant, no words were required as Duan Ling Tian had already confirmed the identity of this young man. Duan Ru Feng, his deadbeat dad, the husband his mother thought of day and night. When Duan Lingtian was looking at Duan Rufeng was looking at him as well. Duan Lingtian was able to notice traces of excitement contained within Duan Rufeng's eyes. That was excitement that came from the heart. You're Tian. Duan Rufeng took large strides forward, arriving before Duan Lingtian in only a few steps, then he extended his hand to touch Duan Lingtian's face. If it was anyone else, Duan Lingtian would have kicked him flying long ago. Whereas at this moment, Duan Lingtian didn't do this, and instead allowed Duan Rufeng to touch his face. For an unknown reason, a type of warm feeling had suddenly surged out from his heart. This feeling grew stronger and stronger. Father, at this moment, even Duan Lingtian never imagined that he would directly open his mouth and acknowledge Duan Rufeng as his father. After all, at the instant he saw Duan Rufeng, he had resentment towards Duan Rufeng. Resenting Duan Lingtian for not returning sooner and caused his mother to suffer so much pain. Presently, all this was slightly unexpected, and it was difficult for him to fathom. It was as if his subconscious was urging him to do this. What did you call me just now? You called me father. Duan Rufeng's face was filled with excitement and pleasant surprise. Obviously, he never expected that this son who he'd never seen in the past would directly acknowledge him. After all, during all these years, he had a guilty conscience towards Duan Lingtian. Even if Duan Lingtian was unwilling to recognize him as his father, he wouldn't be surprised, and he wouldn't blame Duan Lingtian. For the past 20+ years, he'd never carried out the duties of a father. Could it be that you aren't my father? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Duan Rufeng. No, I'm your father, I am your father. Duan Rufeng was slightly unable to express himself properly as he was deeply afraid that Duan Lingtian wouldn't recognize him as his father. Duan Lingtian started to smile. However, his smile completely froze in next to no time. When his spiritual force touched Duan Rufeng, he actually noticed that there was no origin energy within Duan Rufeng's body, and when his spiritual force fused into Duan Rufeng's dantian, he didn't notice even a shred of origin energy. Father, your origin energy, Duan Lingtian's face went pale. Although his spiritual force didn't notice any traces of damage on Duan Rufeng's dantian, Duan Rufeng's body did indeed not have a trace of origin energy. After all, Duan Rufeng was already a nascent soul stage martial artist 23 years ago. Now that 23 years had passed. Logically speaking, with the natural talent that Duan Rufeng displayed during that time, it wasn't difficult for his cultivation to break through to the void initiation stage. But now, not only was Duan Rufeng not a nascent soul stage martial artist, even his origin energy had completely vanished. Of course, it wasn't that Duan Lingtian had never thought that Duan Rufeng's cultivation might have advanced to the void interpretation stage due to some sort of fortuitous encounter. However, even if he was a void interpretation stage expert, even if Duan Lingtian wasn't able to see through the depth of his cultivation, Duan Lingtian would still be able to sense the origin energy in his body. Now, there wasn't a single trace of origin energy in Duan Rufeng's body. The outcome that Duan Lingtian detected was that Duan Rufeng was only a 9th-level body tempering stage martial artist that hadn't developed his origin energy. This was no difference than a martial artist whose dantian had been crippled. At this moment, Duan Lingtian faintly realized that perhaps, it was related to the reason his deadbeat dad had gone missing for many years. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's guess wasn't wrong. My origin energy doesn't exist anymore, Duan Rufeng sighed. That year, I went to the swamp of death to find a serene epiphyllum for your mother and you, and during my journey, an unexpected event occurred. Because of some reasons, it caused me to lose control of myself, and I had no way of returning to look for you and your mother. As he spoke up to hear, a cold light flashed within Duan Rufeng's eyes. If it wasn't for the sake of being able to return and look for you and your mother, I would have chosen to destroy myself with him. I would have entirely not needed to have been ordered about by him for many years and linger on alive until today. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was able to feel the ghastly coldness that was contained in Duan Rufeng's tone. That person? Duan Lingtian's face sank and asked. Father, who is that person? I'll go take revenge for you. There's no need. Duan Rufeng shook his head. Duan Lingtian was instantly bewildered. Duan Rufeng explained. His evil had already been rewarded with evil, and he had already been completely obliterated, otherwise, father might not be able to return and look for you and your mother. Then he really got off lightly. Duan Lingtian grunted coldly, and his eyes contained awe-inspiring coldness. Not only did that person destroy his father, but he'd even caused his mother to be alone and without anyone to rely on for many years. He wished for nothing more than to tear that person into 1,000 pieces. No matter what, it's a happy thing that you two father and son are able to reunite once again. Duan Ruhuo, who'd always been silently standing at the side, spoke slowly. Yeah, third brother, even if you don't have your cultivation, you still have an extraordinary son. In the future, you just have to properly enjoy your life of leisure. Duan Ruhong nodded. Duan Rufeng nodded, then he looked at Duan Lingtian with a guilty expression. Tian, the patriarch has told me about your past experiences. You and your mother have suffered these past few years, and all this was because of father. Father, don't mention things that have passed anymore. It's already a great fortune amongst misfortune that you're able to return this time. I think that mother would surely be exceedingly happy if she sees you. Duan Lingtian persuaded Duan Rufeng, and as he finished speaking, he revealed a smile. Duan Rufeng's figure trembled when he heard this. Before long, Duan Lingtian bid his farewells to Duan Ruhuo and Duan Ruhong, then left the Duan clan estate with Duan Rufeng. On the way, Duan Lingtian intended to ask Duan Rufeng about his exact experiences during these 20 over years. However, he quickly noticed that Duan Rufeng wasn't too willing to mention that piece of experience. Looking at father's current attitude, I can imagine that it's surely an experience that caused one to be unwilling to recall it. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and at the same time, he didn't ask any more. It wasn't long before Duan Lingtian brought Duan Rufeng back to his own courtyard house. Young master, this is, Jing Ru looked at Duan Rufeng who was beside Duan Lingtian, and she was completely stunned. Because, Duan Rufeng was too similar in appearance to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he said, Jing Ru, this is my father. Jing Ru was shocked, and at the same time she slightly lost her composure. She hurriedly bowed to Duan Rufeng. Greetings, Lord. According to her knowledge, didn't the young master's father go missing over 20 years ago? It was shocking that he'd suddenly returned. Father, she's Jing Ru, the manager of my house, Duan Lingtian said to Duan Rufeng. Duan Rufeng lightly smiled as he nodded to Jing Ru, but his gaze quickly moved from Jing Ru and swept throughout the courtyard house. Jing Ru guessed what Duan Rufeng was looked for and said with a light smile, Lord, the madam is in the rear courtyard. Rear courtyard. Duan Rufeng's eyes lit up, his handsome and firm face was excited to the point it started trembling lightly. Father, follow me. Duan Lingtian brought Duan Rufeng to the rear courtyard. In the rear courtyard, a graceful and beautiful figure stood in the distance as she watered the plants, and the view of her back was like a picture, causing one's eyes to light up. Tian, you've returned. The woman slowly turned around when she heard the footsteps. I heard Jing Ru say that early in the morning today, you. The woman didn't finish speaking because she was completely dumbstruck at this moment. The figure that had appeared countless times in her dreams over the past 20+ years had actually appeared before her eyes. It was so real, yet so illusory. Brother Feng, I'm not dreaming, right? The woman's gaze completely disregarded Duan Lingtian and descended onto Duan Rufeng who was beside Duan Lingtian, and she was extremely excited. The woman's delicate figure trembled intensely, and her eyes were filled with anxiety, as she was extremely afraid that the scene before her eyes was only a dream. She even didn't have the courage to stretch out her hand to pinch herself and confirm if she was dreaming or not. Because once it fell through, it would also mean that she would awaken from the dream. She wasn't willing to cut short this happy moment. Even if this was only a dream, she similarly hoped that she would never awaken from this dream. She hoped that this moment could become eternal. At this moment, Duan Rufeng's body was lightly trembling as well. His feelings were exactly the same to the woman before his eyes. Ru, mother. When he saw this deadbeat dad of his, Duan Rufeng, standing on the spot and not making a move after a long time, Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then shouted out. You aren't dreaming, father has returned. Your intuition wasn't wrong all along. Father didn't die, he really didn't die. After he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian noticed that Duan Rufeng and Li Ru both seemed as if they'd awoken from a dream and dashed towards each other. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile, then he turned around and left the rear courtyard. 477 Chapter 478, Guest from Afar. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that his deadbeat dad and his mother had been separated for many years, and they would surely have a lot to say between each other. So he sensibly left the rear courtyard and didn't disturb them. I truly never imagined that I would actually unexpectedly acknowledge this father. When he recalled the scene that occurred in the Duan clan earlier, he still felt it to be slightly difficult to understand, and he felt disbelief. At that moment, he even didn't have the time to react when he inexplicably called Duan Rufeng his father. Perhaps this is a blood connection, Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. However, no matter what, Duan Lingtian was extremely happy that Duan Rufeng had returned. He wasn't happy for himself. He was already used to his current life, and whether that deadbeat dad of his returned or not was of no great effect to him. He was happy for his mother. During these past few years, his mother had endured all kinds of hardships to bring him up. She was a woman without any reliance, and the hardships she carried on her shoulders could be imagined. So Duan Lingtian had always felt heartache for his mother. Now, the man that his mother thought about day and night had returned. It would also mean that from today onwards, his mother wouldn't be alone anymore. Squeak squeak, suddenly, the little gold mouse's cry sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Little gold, what's wrong? Duan Lingtian looked wonderingly at the little gold mouse as he asked curiously. The little gold mouse blinked her pair of jade green eyes, then stared at Duan Lingtian as she said via voice transmission, Big brother Lingtian, when your father looked at me earlier, I sensed a terrifying aura sweep over. That terrifying aura was extremely similar to the aura I sensed at the Swamp of Death the other day. Swamp of Death? Duan Lingtian's brows raised. He clearly remembered the incident from that day. It was precisely because the little gold mouse had sensed a terrifying aura that the little gold mouse was able to bring him along to look for the hall in the underground palace that was deep underground. However, according to the little gold mouse, in the end, that terrifying aura only appeared briefly at the instant when that strong soul wanted to destroy his soul and seize his body. That terrifying aura was obviously emitted by that strong soul. Duan Lingtian had already guessed this on that day. Little gold, I think you've surely sensed it wrongly, the owner of the aura you sensed is gone forever. Duan Lingtian shook his head and he only thought that the little gold mouse had sensed wrongly. The little gold mouse drooped her small head when she heard this, but didn't refute. After all, she only felt that terrifying aura at the instant Duan Rufeng looked at her, and that aura vanished without a trace in the blink of an eye. At this moment, even she wasn't sure if it was her misconception. Duan Lingtian only heard Li Ru call him when night descended. Duan Lingtian brought the little gold mouse along and walked into the rear courtyard. Only now did he notice that his mother was leaning on the side of his deadbeat dad, Duan Rufeng. Her beautiful cheeks emitted a wisp of rosiness, and her watery eyes even seemed as if they could melt anything. Mom, congratulations on realizing your wish. It was the first time that Duan Lingtian had seen his mother so happy, and he couldn't help but emit a smile. He was able to discern that his mother was really happy, as she had happiness written all over her face. Tian, quickly come over and let your father have a good look at you. Li Ru called Duan Lingtian over with a smile that was like a flower, and she was both beautiful and charming. Duan Lingtian walked over. Ru, you've gone through great hardships during these past few years. I already know of all the things you and Tian have experienced during these past few years. I guarantee that in the future, I won't leave your side in the slightest. Duan Rufeng looked at the wife by his side, and when he thought of his wife's experiences during these past few years, his heart was filled with guilt. Li Ru lightly nodded with a happy expression. The family of three were overflowing with joy. During this time, for the sake of not making his mother worry, Duan Lingtian didn't mention the matter of his father losing all the origin energy in his body, and Duan Lingtian only acted as company that listened to his father and mother speak of their past. These past events were mostly the stories when his father and mother were young. At that time, he hadn't been born yet. I actually have two future daughter-in-laws. Duan Rufeng's eyes lit up when he heard Li Ru mention Kair and Li Fei, then smiled as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Tian, not bad, you're better than your father in this aspect. What, Brother Feng, you want to embrace women both left and right as well? Li Ru, who sat by Duan Rufeng's side, spoke with a voice that was gentle like water, and practically no unusual feelings could be heard from her voice. But Duan Rufeng's face completely fell. Ru, I spoke wrongly, I didn't mean that, I really didn't mean that. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh when he saw Duan Rufeng busy explaining to Li Ru. After another period of time passed. Brother Feng, Tian, you father and son have a good talk and develop the feelings between the two of you, I'll cook tonight. When Li Ru left the reed courtyard, her face was rosy and she was extremely happy. People get into high spirits when they encounter happy events. This saying was precisely speaking about the current Li Ru. To Li Ru, there was nothing more delightful than the return of her husband that had been missing for over 20 years. Father, what happened to your origin energy? I noticed that your dantian seems to have no traces of injury, can you cultivate once more? Duan Ling Tian looked at Duan Rufeng and asked. Tian, you don't have to worry about father, I'm already extremely happy that I'm able to return to your mother's side. As for other things, they aren't important to me. Duan Rufeng's words were heartfelt. It was as if his origin energy entirely didn't affect his feelings in the slightest. Duan Ling Tian went silent. Could it be that father is really unable to cultivate once more? Although he didn't know the reason, based on his father's current attitude, his father obviously had no intention of cultivating once more. Or perhaps, because of some reasons, his father was unable to cultivate once more. In next to no time, Duan Ling Tian seemed to have thought of something and didn't ask any more. Father, it doesn't matter if you can cultivate again or not, even if you don't have your cultivation, you're still my mother's husband, and the father of Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian said with a smile, like what fourth uncle said in the Duan clan estate today, accompany mother's side in the future and properly enjoy the joys of leisure. I don't dare speak about other things, but I still dare guarantee to give you and mom a peaceful life. Tian. Duan Ling Tian's words caused Duan Rufeng to be silent for a long time before slowly opening his mouth. However, even after he opened his mouth, he seemed to not know what he ought to say, and he only lightly called out to Duan Ling Tian. His tone was filled with gratification. The child that was still in his wife's belly all those years ago had already grown up now and had now achieved both success and fame. As a father, he was happy for Duan Ling Tian. It wasn't long before Li Ru brought along a few female attendants to carry the dishes into the rear courtyard, then the family of three gathered together and ate cheerfully. Squeak squeak, during the process of eating, the little gold mouse poked her nose in and added a great deal of fun. Duan Ling Tian felt extremely warm and happy as he ate this meal. However, when he sat alone at the side after the meal, Duan Ling Tian's gaze became slightly distant. I don't know where K'er and little Fei are, or how they are. Besides his mother, the two little girls were the biggest concern in Duan Ling Tian's heart. Especially now when he saw his mother happily snuggling up by his father's side, his feelings were even greater. Logically speaking, even if they've gone any further, they ought to have returned now, right? Deep in the night, it was a rare occasion that Duan Ling Tian didn't cultivate, and he instead lay on the bed thinking of the two little girls. At an unknown time, he fell asleep. Tonight, he had a dream. He dreamed that K'er and Li Fei had both returned. However, when he awoke the next day, the empty feeling when he stretched out his arms had undoubtedly told Duan Ling Tian that K'er and Li Fei hadn't returned yet. They ought to be fine with Peak Master Qin Shang at their side. Duan Ling Tian consoled himself, yet he couldn't help but miss the two girls in his heart. Finally, after 5 days, a guest from afar had arrived at Duan Ling Tian's home. It was a beautiful woman that was fatigued from the journey. It was exactly the Alcade Peak's master, Qin Shang. Presently, Qin Zhang's peerlessly beautiful face seemed to be covered in a layer of ice, and her beautiful eyes seemed to have scarlet red mixed within. Peak Master, you know everything. Duan Ling Tian noticed Qin Xian's expression and he knew that Qin Shang had surely found out about what happened to the 7-star sword sect, and he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Qin Shang nodded, and her eyes contained awe-inspiring killing intent. I never expected that I'd only left for over a year and so many things had happened to the sect. Azure Forest Tri-sect, what a good Azure Forest Tri-sect. The 7-star sword sect could be said to be Qin Zhang's home. Besides the contributions of that big sister of hers, the reason Qin Shang possessed her current accomplishments were even more because of her master putting both heart and soul into fostering her. Her master was an inner court elder of the 7-star sword sect, and one of the few existences that possessed a cultivation above the 4th level of the void initiation stage in the 7-star sword sect. Although her current cultivation had already surpassed her master, in her heart, once her master, forever her father. Now, her master had been killed. The sect that fostered her into a capable person had been annihilated. Peak Master, don't worry. The Azure Forest Tri-sect will sooner or later repay all that they owe us in the 7-star sword sect. A strand of frightful killing intent flashed past Duan Lingtian's eyes as he spoke word for word. A debt of blood must be repaid in blood. Well said. A debt of blood must be repaid in blood. Qin Shang nodded and cold lights flickered within her eyes. Peak Master, where are Kair and Little Fei? Why didn't they return with you? Duan Lingtian looked at Qin Shang and asked. The cold light in Qin Zhang's eyes weakened slightly when she heard Duan Lingtian, and she forced out a trace of a smile on her face. Don't worry, they're at an extremely safe place, no one is able to harm them. Duan Lingtian looked in bewilderment at Qin Shang, and his brows slightly frowned. Peak Master Qin Shang, they didn't return with you. No, Qin Shang shook her head. They're still in the foreign lands now, I returned half a month ago. As soon as I returned, I noticed that the sect had completely changed, and under my investigation in secret, I found out that the sect was annihilated by the Azure Forest Tri-sect. After that, I found out that you were sent off by Elder Peng. I recalled Kair mentioning that all of you were from the Crimson Sky Kingdom, so I came to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. 478 Chapter 479, the voice that sounded out from the horizon. It's exactly as I expected, you've returned to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. As she spoke up to hear, Qin Shang heaved a sigh of relief and muttered. Fortunately, you're fine, otherwise, I don't know how I should explain it to Kair. When mentioning Kair, the infuriated expression of hatred on Qin Zhang's face completely vanished, and replacing it was a doting expression. Peak Master Qin Shang. Duan Lingtian looked at Qin Shang and frowned. Why are Kair and Little Fei in the foreign lands? Could it be that you don't know that I brought them along to celebrate the birthday of my big sister that's at a faraway place? Qin Shang asked. I know this, Peak Master Zheng Fan told me, but, what has this got to do with the foreign lands? Said Duan Lingtian. Qin Shang shook his head. Looks like you still don't know, that big sister of mine is from the foreign lands, and she's even an elder of a great power in the foreign lands. I brought Kair and Li Fei along to celebrate my big sister's birthday this time, and my big sister took a liking towards Kair and Li Fei's natural talent, so she temporarily made them stay back. Duan Lingtian's body trembled lightly. Foreign lands. The big sister of Peak Master Qin Shang is actually someone from the foreign lands. Moreover, she's an elder of some great power. In the foreign lands, experts were numerous like the clouds, and powers were established in great numbers. An existence that could be called a great power was a formidable power that was preeminent in the foreign lands. Never had Duan Lingtian imagined that his two fiancés had actually went to the foreign lands with Peak Master Qin Shang. Moreover, they had now even stayed behind at the great power in the foreign lands. Of course, he knew that it was the good fortune of the two little girls. A great power in the foreign lands possessed innumerable cultivation resources, and there was no lack of various spirit fruits. The two little girls that were able to obtain the favor of a great figure from a great power was undoubtedly their good fortune, and presumably, the advancement of their cultivations would surely be at a tremendous pace. Although he was slightly reluctant, Duan Lingtian was still happy for them. Who would have imagined that when I returned this time, only the location of the seven-star sword sect remained but not the people within it? As she finished speaking, Qin Zhang's feelings were slightly agitated, and the killing intent in her eyes surged as if it was waiting for a chance to swallow someone up. Flowing lights flashed within Duan Lingtian's eyes as he asked. Peak Master Qin Shang, now that the seven-star sword sect doesn't exist any longer, do you have any plans? A fierce light flickered within Qin Zhang's eyes. I'll devote myself to closed-door cultivation so that I can break through to the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage as soon as possible. At that time, I'll make that Azure Forest Tri-sect turn into ash. You aren't returning to the foreign lands. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Qin Shang. Return to the foreign lands. Qin Shang laughed in self-ridicule. No matter if it was when I left with Kair and Li Fei, or when I returned this time, that big sister of mine sent someone to escort me all the way. The person that escorted me has already left long ago since I entered the territory of the Darkstone Empire. The foreign lands are exceedingly dangerous, and going to the foreign lands by myself with this little strength of mine would surely lead to death. When she spoke up to hear, Qin Shang looking at Duan Lingtian and said, I know you miss Kair and Li Fei. Don't worry, with my big sister taking care of them, they'll surely be able to obtain better improvement in their cultivations. Perhaps, when you see them next, their strength would have already far surpassed you. Perhaps, the absolutely irreconcilable enmity of annihilating the seven-star sword sect can only be depended upon you and the two of them. As she finished speaking, Qin Shang couldn't help but sigh. Although she'd vowed solemnly of waiting to devote herself to closed-door cultivation, then break through to the 7th level of the Void initiation stage before seeking revenge from the Azure Forest Trisect. But she knew clearly in her heart that with her current cultivation, not to mention the 7th level of the Void initiation stage, she was even quite a distance away from the 6th level of the Void initiation stage. Moreover, it was practically impossible for her to break through to the 7th level of the Void initiation stage with her natural talent. So, she placed even more hope onto Duan Lingtian, Ke and Li Fei. Don't worry, Peak Master Qin Shang, I, Duan Lingtian, have vowed since long ago that I would surely avenge the souls of everyone from our 7-star sword sect. Duan Lingtian had a serious expression as he spoke earnestly. Qin Shang nodded. She believed that Duan Lingtian was able to do it. Duan Lingtian. Suddenly, a voice that was like a thunderclap sounded out from the horizon. Although this voice was aged, yet it was extremely powerful, and it contained strong origin energy that almost spread throughout the entire imperial city of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, causing an extremely great stir. At this moment, the people in the inner city and outer city of the imperial city all looked up into the sky. However, the gazes of most people were blocked off by the clouds and mist, and they were unable to see anything. I didn't hear wrongly earlier, right? Someone called Duan Lingtian. You didn't hear wrong, my god. That voice earlier was simply like a thunderclap. Presently, perhaps everyone in the imperial city has heard that voice. A person that is able to emit such a voice that even came from the horizon is obviously a void stage expert. The owner of that voice seemed to bear down menacingly, and seems to not be so friendly. Duan Lingtian has probably offended someone. No matter if it was the outer city or the inner city, the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom Imperial City was filled with similar discussions. Imperial Palace. Swoosh, swoosh, 2 figures stepped up into the sky one after the other. The person in the front was a middle-aged man in imperial robes, and it was precisely the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor. Behind the emperor was a grey-clothed old man that followed like a shadow behind the emperor. This was the newly advanced void prying stage expert of the imperial family, the expert that was attained from the void advancement pill Duan Lingtian gifted to the emperor, and he was a loyal subordinate of the emperor's. Where did Commander Duan provoke such a formidable existence from? The emperor's brows were tightly knit. The aged voice from before was thick and powerful, and the origin energy contained within it even caused him to feel shocked and terrified. He had a type of intuition that even if he and the grey-clothed old man by his side were to join forces, they might not be a match for a single move from the owner of the voice. Divine Might Marquis Estate. Another 2 figures flew up into the sky, and one of them was precisely the Divine Might Marquis, Ni Yuan. The other person was an old man in black clothes. He followed silently by Ni Yuan's side, as if he was Ni Yuan's shadow. Little Tian, that child, where did he draw these experts over from? Ni Yuan laughed bitterly. Duan Clan Estate. The Duan Clan's Grand Elder, Duan Zhen, the only void-prying stage expert of the Duan Clan, flew up into the sky as well, and his expression contained slight terror mixed within. Could it be that it's an expert from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? Exactly what hateful thing has that little fellow done to cause this expert to be so enraged? Although the rage within the voice from before wasn't too obvious, it was still noticed by Duan Zhen, who'd already broken through to the void-prying stage. Paladin Academy. Whoosh. The middle-aged scholar with a feather fan and silk headdress had a graceful bearing as he stood in the sky, then looked at the horizon from afar as he muttered. That expert seems to hate that little fellow, Duan Lingtian, not to mention me. Even if all the void-prying stage experts in the Crimson Sky Kingdom were to join forces, they might not be a match for such an existence. At the same time that he muttered to himself, the corners of the middle-aged scholar's mouth curled into a bitter smile. Duan Lingtian's house front courtyard. This voice, Duan Lingtian's face sank. Although he wasn't familiar with the owner of this voice, yet he had a deep impression of it, and he remembered it clearly. Elder Ming. Qin Zhang's beautiful eyes squinted as she discerned the owner of the voice, and a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on her face. Elder Ming is still alive. Elder Ming is actually still alive. Looks like the heavens really didn't give up on my 7-star sword sect. At the same time that Qin Shang muttered to herself, her figure flashed up into the sky, and she vanished before Duan Lingtian's eyes in an instant. Peak Master Qin Shang. Duan Lingtian's face went gloomy. He wanted to stop Qin Shang but was already too late as she'd already disappeared within the clouds. Damn it. Cold lights flickered within Duan Lingtian's eyes. No one was clearer than him that even if Elder Ming was still alive, it was impossible that he was alive because he escaped. After all, the experts of the Azure Forest Tri sect was numerous like the clouds, and their experts completely suppressed the 7-star sword sect. Even though that Elder Ming's strength was formidable, but he didn't possess the speed of Elder Peng after all, and it was practically impossible for him to escape. In this way, there was only one possibility. Elder Ming had betrayed the 7-star sword sect. Little Gold, enlarge yourself and take me up there. Duan Lingtian didn't dare hesitate. He hurriedly called the little gold mouse and leapt onto the back of the little gold mouse after she enlarged herself, and he asked the little gold mouse to take him up into the sky. At the instant that Duan Lingtian rose up into the sky with the little gold mouse. Void-prying stage martial artists of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, listen up, if I don't see Duan Lingtian in the next half an hour, then I'll kill all of you one by one. The aged and sonorous voice sounded out once more, and it contained no lack of threats. It threatened all the void-prying stage martial artists in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. When the voice sounded out this time, besides contain thick origin energy, it also carried strands of exceedingly strange aura. Wind concept. Duan Lingtian's face sank. This voice was accompanied by vast origin energy and formidable wind concept, and instantly, it spread throughout every corner of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city without leaving out a single spot. At this moment, so long as it wasn't a deaf person, then practically everyone in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city had heard these words. Looks like Duan Lingtian had really offended a formidable existence. What lofty sentiments! Intending to kill all the void-prying stage experts of our Crimson Sky Kingdom if we don't hand Duan Lingtian over. That person is probably an existence Duan Lingtian offended in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Now, he has come to the Crimson Sky Kingdom to seek vengeance. Everyone in the Imperial City was completely stirred. In the streets and alleys, practically all the waves of clamorous rumors were discussing Duan Lingtian. Various versions of rumors covered the sky and the earth as they swept out. Allegedly, Duan Lingtian slept with the daughter of an expert in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, then didn't take responsibility and snuck off, so that expert chased him all the way to out Crimson Sky Kingdom to get even with Duan Lingtian. Nope. I heard that an expert of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom had taken a fancy on Duan Lingtian's natural talent, and the expert wanted to take Duan Lingtian as his personal disciple, yet was refused by Duan Lingtian. For fear of losing face, he couldn't flare up in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, so, he came to our Crimson Sky Kingdom to vent. The streets and alleys of the Imperial City were completely bustling with noise and excitement. 479 Chapter 480, brought it onto himself. Shao Clan Estate, within a spacious large courtyard. Xiao Yu and Xiao Lan both dashed out from their rooms and ran into each other. Brother, I want to go look for Duan Lingtian. Xiao Lan's heart burned with anxiety, her beautiful face pale, and her eyes contained tears that were about to drop. She'd clearly heard the voice that sounded out from the horizon earlier and she'd realized that Duan Lingtian might have encountered danger. Let's go together. Xiao Yu didn't stop her, and he brought along Xiao Lan to walk out of the courtyard, intending to leave the Xiao Clan estate to look for Duan Lingtian. His younger sister was worried, and he was similarly worried. Duan Lingtian was his friend. Especially after Duan Lingtian returned this time, he even acquired the high regard of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor, and his future seemed glorious. He knew that Duan Lingtian had quite a contribution behind all this. So, he was extremely grateful to Duan Lingtian. Wait for me. Xiao Yu and Xiao Lan had only just walked out of the large courtyard when they heard a voice that was out of breath sounding out from behind them. It was Xiao Shuan who'd come after hearing the voice. However, they hadn't even walked out of the Xiao Clan estate when they were stopped. The person that stopped them was precisely the Xiao Clan's patriarch. I know all of you are worried about Duan Lingtian, but not only will all of you be of no help if you go there now, it's even possible that all of you will be tragically caught in the crossfire. So, as disciples of the Xiao Clan, all of you can't leave the Xiao Clan now. The Xiao Clan's patriarch had a serious expression as he spoke solemnly. Patriarch, Duan Lingtian is our friend. Xiao Yu's words were extremely simple, and his tone contained extreme determination. Exactly, Xiao Shuan said as well. It's precisely because he's your friend. At this time, all of you aren't able to help even if all of you go there, and you'll only be a burden, said the Xiao Clan's patriarch. Xiao Shuan and Xiao Yu were silent for a while when they heard this. Only Xiao Lan took a graceful stride forward, circumnavigating the Shao clan's patriarch to head out of the Shao clan estate. This scene had exceeded the expectations of everyone. Shao Lan, I know of the affection you have towards Duan Lingtian, however, if you insist on stepping out of my Shao clan estate's gate today, then you won't be a member of my Shao clan any longer. The Shao clan's patriarch spoke in a deep voice. The expert that had come looking for trouble with Duan Lingtian was of unknown origin, but since he dared say that he would kill all the void-prying stage martial artists of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, it showed his strength wasn't weak. An existence like this was something that ordinary people would avoid as soon as possible. How would they dare join in? If Shao Lan carried the identity of a Shao clan disciple when she went to look for Duan Lingtian and were to accidentally offend that experts, then wouldn't their Shao clan likely be caught in the crossfire? The Shao clan couldn't gamble on this. As the patriarch of the Shao clan, he had to think for the Shao clan. Then from today onwards, I, Shao Lan, am not a member of the Shao clan. Shao Lan didn't even turn around when she heard the Shao clan's patriarch, and her chilly voice that followed her heart sounded out. This caused the Shao clan's patriarch to be unable to help but reveal a bitter smile. Lan, Shao Yu gritted his teeth, then took a stride forward, intending to chase after his sister. Shao Yu, do you want to leave our Shao clan like your sister? The Shao clan patriarch's face went grim when he saw Shao Yu's actions. It was fine if Shao Lan left the Shao clan. But Shao Yu was the hope of the Shao clan who possessed extraordinary natural talent. Presently, he'd even obtained the high regard of the emperor, and becoming successful in the future was nothing difficult. He'd even already intended to betroth his daughter to Shao Yu and foster Shao Yu into the next Shao clan patriarch. But now, Shao Yu instead wanted to take a risk. Patriarch, thank you for your constant care, however, I can't disregard the safety of my friend and sister. Today, if I don't walk out of the Shao clan estate today, then I'm not much of a brother, and not much of a friend. Shao Yu had a resolute expression as he took a stride forward, and his imposing aura shot into the sky like a rainbow. Shao Yu, wait, Shao Xuan was influenced by Shao Yu and wanted to follow suit. However, he hadn't even took the stride forward, and he hadn't even finished speaking when he saw the Shao clan's patriarch make a move, directly knocking Shao Yu out. Patriarch, how can you do this? Shao Xuan's face went grim as he asked with a low voice. HMPH. The Shao clan's patriarch glanced at Shao Xuan, then said indifferently, Shao Xuan, could it be that you want to learn from Shao Yu? Don't blame me for not warning you. If you dare walk out of the Shao clan gate, then you'll have to be put down like Shao Yu. I really don't know what you juniors are thinking. All of you know that there's a tiger on the mountain, yet you walk towards the mountain. As he finished speaking, he had an expression of being exasperated at their actions. Shao Xuan laughed bitterly. He knew that this patriarch would do as he said, and he could only hope in his heart that Duan Lingtian and Shao Lan would be fine. Don't worry. So long as Shao Lan doesn't incur trouble, then all I said earlier is invalid. She is still a disciple of my Shao clan. The last words that the patriarch spoke caused Shao Xuan's expression to ease up. At the same time, Imperial Palace. Whoosh. A beautiful figure dashed out from a luxurious pavilion, and fragrant winds swept out from everywhere the figure passed. Princess, princess, wait for me. Behind the figure, a palace maid chased as she breathed heavily. You must be fine, you must be fine. The figure that dashed in the front was none other than the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family's Princess Bai Yao. At this moment, Princess Bai Yao's beautiful face was pale. Her eyes that were like autumn water were anxious, and she wished for nothing more than to insert two wings onto herself and directly fly towards that man's courtyard house. Whereas presently, high above the sky of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial kingdom, three figures were like three gods that stood on the clouds. Swoosh! Suddenly, a dignified and graceful figure rose up into the sky to soar above the clouds and mist, then looked at an azure-clothed old man in the distance. Elder Ming. This was a beautiful woman, and the beautiful woman's voice contained slight seriousness. Is there some misunderstanding between you and Duan Lingtian? The beautiful woman was Qin Shang, the former Alcade Peak's master of the Seven-Star Sword sect who was an existence that possessed a cultivation that had stepped into the 5th level of the Void Initiation stage. In terms of strength in the Seven-Star Sword sect in the past, she was only inferior to the sect leader, Lingu Jinhong, the sect guardian revered elder, Elder Peng, and the two great guardian elders. Earlier when she heard Elder Ming call Duan Lingtian's name, she thought that Elder Ming wanted to protect Duan Lingtian, and allow Duan Lingtian to not be found by the members of the Azure Forest Tri-sect. After all, Duan Lingtian was the hope of the Seven-Star Sword Sect. Avenging the Seven-Star Sword Sect and rebuilding the Seven-Star Sword Sect both couldn't do without Duan Lingtian. However, she'd only just rose into the sky when she heard what Elder Ming said next. At that instant, the pleasant surprise on her face completely vanished. Elder Ming actually didn't come to protect Duan Lingtian, but instead came to look for trouble with Duan Lingtian. She couldn't wrap her head around it and only thought that it was a misunderstanding. Little girl Shang, the azure-clothed old man, formerly one of the two great guardian elders of the Seven-Star Sword Sect, Elder Ming, was slightly surprised as well when he saw Qin Shang appear. Elder Ming, this is the former peak master of the Seven-Star Sword Sect's Alcade Peak, Qin Shang. As expected, she'd young and promising. Elder Ming, you have to win over such a talented person for our Azure Forest Tri-Sect. The red-clothed old man that stood beside the azure-clothed old man spoke with a sonorous voice and the red clothes on him fluttered with the wind like a blazing flame. Yeah, Elder Ming, this girl's natural talent isn't bad. In the future, she might be able to become the first existence in our Azure Forest Tri-Sect to break through to the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage. At that time, our Azure Forest Tri-Sect will be able to be on equal footing as the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family. The last old man wore green clothes, he had a gaunt figure that was like bones covered in skin, and his tone was exceedingly gloomy. Meanwhile, Qin Shang noticed the red-clothed old man and green-clothed old man, and her face went gloomy. You two are members of the Azure Forest Tri-Sect. Subsequently, she looked at Zhao Ming and said in a low voice. Zhao Ming, you actually betrayed the sect and pledged allegiance to the Azure Forest Tri-Sect. Betray. Zhao Ming couldn't help but sneer when he heard Qin Shang. Little girl Shang, your words are slightly biased. Betray. I, Zhao Lin, have practically given my entire lifetime to the Seven-Star Sword Sect. But in the end, how did the Seven-Star Sword Sect repay me? My son, Zhao Lin, was killed by a member of the Seven-Star Sword Sect. My grandson, Zhao Ke, was crippled by a member of the Seven-Star Sword Sect, and caused my Zhao clan to die without descendants. Since the Seven-Star Sword Sect has let me down first, then why should I continue giving my life for the Seven-Star Sword Sect? As he finished speaking, Zhao Ming's tone was ghastly, and it contained boundless rage mixed within. Zhao Ming's words caused Qin Shang to be unable to help from being stunned, and she said slightly hesitantly after some time. Elder Ming, is there some misunderstanding within this? Did you see with your own eyes that a member of our Seven-Star Sword Sect killed Zhao Lin and crippled Zhao Ke? Can this even be fake? Zhao Ming sneered in disdain, and his face was covered in a layer of ice. Elder Ming, even if this matter is true, it's a personal offense, how can you blame it on the sect? Qin Shang said angrily. Ha 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 ha, Zhao Ming laughed loudly as he coldly glanced at Qin Shang and said in a cold voice, Little girl Qin, let me ask you, if it was you, what would you think if you saw the sect desperately saving the person that crippled your grandson during the time the sect encountered a calamity? If it was you, what would you think if your son went to stop that person from being saved and was killed by the higher-ups of the sect? Zhao Ming's words were spoken with certainty, and it caused Qin Shang to be speechless. After a short while, Qin Shang recovered her senses and her beautiful brows frowned. Elder Ming, the person you're speaking of is Duan Lingtian. Exactly, it's that little bastard Duan Lingtian. When Zhao Ming mentioned Duan Lingtian, icy cold flames lit up in his eyes, and they seemed as if they could burn everything. Elder Ming, is there some misunderstanding in this matter? Qin Shang looked at Zhao Ming. According to my knowledge, Duan Lingtian is absolutely not the type of person that made trouble deliberately. What you mean is, from the beginning until the end, this entire matter was brought onto my grandson by himself. Zhao Ming's face sank, and the flames of his rage rose to the limit. Right when Qin Shang didn't know how to respond to Zhao Ming. Perhaps your grandson didn't bring it onto himself, but that son of yours absolutely did bring it onto himself. A cold and indifferent voice suddenly sounded out. In the next moment, an enormous gold figure tore through the sky and floated by Qin Zhang's side.